Okay, so we're on? Okay.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. This is the Rowley Board of Selectmen meeting for May 21, 2018. We have a 7 o'clock appointment with William Bill Demento, a 7:15 appointment with Kevin Daly to discuss his application for Planning Board Associate Member position, and a 7:30 public hearing on a liquor license alteration of licensed premises filed by Stephen Piero of Great American Barbecue. And among other matters, we have a very important discussion later in the evening on the Triton school budget. Joe, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first order of business is the appointment with William Bill Demento. Bill, thanks for coming. Bill is resigning from the board, or has resigned already, from the Board of Assessors after many years of dedicated service. I think that we all thank you for that, and I have a proclamation to read. Town of Rowley Proclamation. We, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Rowley, Massachusetts, by virtue of the authority vested in us by the people of Rowley as elected officials, do hereby proclaim that William Bill Demento, having faithfully served in an exemplary manner on the Board of Assessors for the Town of Rowley for 31 consecutive years, and on the occasion of his departure from this service, the Board of Selectmen wishes to bestow its most sincere gratitude. We urge all citizens of the Town of Rowley, its community leaders, business and government officials to recognize this achievement and service and join in thanking Bill for his many years of service to the town. A witness whereof I hereby set my hand and seal of the Town of Rowley this 21st day of May 2018. Can I have a motion?
Give me that
motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Vote is unanimous. Guess we'll give this to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Can we get a photo?
How many years was that? Wow.
30.
Wow.
Thank you,
Goes by real
Bill.
quick.
It does, it does.
Can we get a quick photo?
Sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, oh,
Excited.
yeah, definitely.
And I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed working with all of you, and I'll continue to enjoy working with you as harbor master. I've had to rearrange some of my schedule these days with the job that pays the bills, and the harbor master one will continue to do, but this is one that I'm leaving in great hands with Sean McFadden, and he continues to do a great job. And now we've got Bob's wife, Jamie, on the board, and I'm sure they'll continue to do a great job for the town. Thank you.
She always seems to follow the Dementos. Your father asked her to be on the finance board, and now she's following you.
No, just an opportunity, I guess, since we are on live, to encourage the townspeople, especially the next generation, to get involved with town government and continue to help. We really need people to be involved.
We do.
Thank you all for your
Take a
service.
picture,
and
Bill? You want
many years.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Sure. Many years of service and dedication to this town. I've enjoyed it and will continue to enjoy it.
Good. You're gonna take it.
He's learning the protocol.
Want me to deal?
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Oh, one more. Here we go. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you for your service, Bill.
Job well done for many years.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll let them get on the
How many years is
Jenna?
harbor master, Bill?
1979.
Jenna, are you going to be at
Really?
graduation?
1979.
Are you going to play?
Yeah, so hard to believe,
Yeah.
Very good.
but feeling younger every year now.
Thank you again, Bill.
Congratulations.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks.
Good luck. Great evening.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, our next appointment is at 7:15, so, what's that?
You want to do the speech about the with video.
Oh, right. Could I forget? This meeting is being video and audio recorded and televised live on Rowley Community Media. So our next appointment is at 7:15, so I'll take up some old business between now and then. First, old business number 1, update on fire station, police station addition project. Framing of the police station addition is continuing this week. Underground plumbing is complete. Underground electrical work is continuing this week and should be completed by Friday. Concrete masonry units for the fire department are being worked on. The radio tower is complete and is ready for delivery when the site and foundation is ready. Any other comments?
Yeah, they poured the floor today for the fire station administrative part of the building. The fire engine bays will be poured at a later date. But that's been done today. They're getting ready. By the end of the week, they should be putting up the trusses, the roof trusses for the police station. They're continuing to do the carpentry work over there, and basically it's all progressing well, and the weather's holding pretty good, so very fortunate that things are moving right along.
Yeah, that's good. Anyone else? No? Old business number 2 is Pine Grove School project update. We have received the first construction requisition from W.T. Rich in the amount of $493,884.63. Construction started on just before April vacation. Construction is in full swing, and once school is out for the summer, the contractor will take over the entire premises of the building for construction throughout the summer. Any other comments, Joe?
Just a comment that we have a construction meeting every Friday morning at 9 o'clock. And I was looking at the agenda this past Friday, and it was agenda for our meeting number 6. And I found it incredible that we've already had, that was our 6th construction meeting at Pine Grove, because they started the first week of school vacation, April 16th, and we only have about 100 more meetings to go. But no, it's amazing the amount of work that's going on and that they've accomplished already. So it's going along very well.
Good news as well. Okay, I'll move to new business number 2, discuss request from Triton Regional School Committee to designate a selectman and a finance committee member to serve as town representatives to the District Communication Committee for discussion on the assessment formula. There is a District Communications Committee meeting set for this upcoming Thursday evening. Apparently, the Triton School Committee is requesting representatives from the boards of Selectmen and Finance of each of the 3 member towns to discuss the budget funding formula.
If I could offer a comment, Mr. Chairman, I have been the selectman representative to the school committee for 7 years, and they've been working on the Triton Regional Agreement for all of that time, and we've been trying to get the various committees going. We had the landlord-tenant going there for a while, and I think we have a document that will be presented to all of the boards of selectmen for the 3 towns. But they would also like to get this committee rolling, and it's going to take a bit of time and some work. They are requesting a finance committee member and a selectman for at least from each of the 3 towns.
Any volunteers?
Want to continue, Joe? You've been heavily involved in it.
I will be happy to.
Anybody else interested? I'll nominate Joe.
Second?
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good luck.
Thank you.
We don't actually vote on the finance committee member, do we?
No.
No. Okay, so our next appointment is at 7:15. We've got some time.
Good public comment.
Public comment period is just open, and we'll close at 7:16. New business number 3, approve town liquor license application guidelines for notification to abutters and others form. The The attached guidelines for notification to abutters and others form was created to guide liquor license applicants through their responsibility for notifying abutters and others of their application under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 15A. Please let us know if you have any comments or questions about these guidelines. We would like to provide applicants with these guidelines going forward once they are approved by the Board of Selectmen. Anyone have any comments to the guidelines?
I think that they clearly delineate what the responsibilities are and in notifications to the abutters and others. And I think it's nice to have everything in writing so that we could just give it to an applicant.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing to have, you know, I think it's very well done. I think there should be some specification that these guidelines pertain to licensure applications. So they're not basically town-wide guidelines. For example, they wouldn't apply to public hearings held by the planning board or the zoning board of appeals. So I'm wondering if the title should be changed to guidelines for.
Part of the application package for liquor licenses
Yeah.
for pouring, and they're under 138, 15A.
Right.
No, they're not distributed town-wide, it's
Yeah.
only for the liquor license package, so certainly we can say liquor license at the top.
Guidelines for liquor
nothing
licensures,
to
you know,
do with anything
something
other
like
than-
that. Yeah,
If they get a big package, and just wanna put this one
Right.
in the liquor license application package for these types of establishments.
right. So that could be changed, just to clarify.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that I noticed on paragraph 4, which is basically, it talks about that when the applicants send out the tear slip to any church, school, or hospital within 500 feet, they must notify the church, school, or hospital that if it objects to the application, the church, school, or hospital must submit a written objection to the board. Should we add there also abutters, that if, when they send out these notices to abutters, there should also be that explanation?
I think that exceeds the statute, Mr. Chairman. I think that exceeds the statute.
Really? Okay.
But we extracted
You went by the
this-
statute?
Exactly.
Okay, all right, well then,
And just tried to make it so it wasn't,
okay, all right. Well,
we're handing this form out, you know, to some other establishments recently, and it's confusing, so that's why we developed these, to try to.
It's always
assist.
safe to stick to the statute, I agree, 100%. Anybody want to make a motion to approve the guidelines?
I'll make that motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, I think, is Kevin Daly here? Oh, thanks. Would you like to come up and sit in the front row? Thank you for coming. Kevin Daly is here to discuss the Planning Board Associate position. He submitted a letter and a resume. The Planning Board has submitted a letter to the Board of Selectmen. I'll read the Planning Board's letter or email. The Planning Board met with Mr. Kevin Daly pertaining to the Planning Board's currently vacant associate member position and voted unanimously 4-0 to recommend that the Board of Selectmen take formal action at their meeting next Monday night to appoint Mr. Daly to that position. Also, the board welcomed its new regular member, Mr. John Urbacheski, who is now sworn in and ready to assume his planning board member duties. And we have a letter from Kevin saying, to whom it may concern, I would like to apply for associate member position of the Rowley Planning Board. As a resident of Rowley, I believe strongly in serving my community and learning more about the town. I also feel this would be a great opportunity to play a role in shaping our town's development and preserving its history. Thank you for your consideration. Please find my resume attached. Okay, so I want to say that I'm pleased to see a new applicant for the planning board because we've had a hard time filling that position. Would you like to explain why you would like to be a planning board associate member?
Just moved here 3 years ago. I have a daughter in Pine Grove, soon to be a son in Pine Grove next year. And I just wanted to get involved in the town and meet the town residents and get involved in the planning of the town's future.
Okay. Could you tell us about your background briefly?
Sure, I'm a mechanical contractor during the day, recent graduate from Wentworth Institute of Technology, Construction Management, and I'm also a local realtor.
Oh, well, that would be certainly relevant. Anyone else? Questions?
The planning board deals with special permit and site plan applications as set under the town zoning bylaws. The town follows the permitting process as stipulated under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A. Please describe your knowledge of the zoning bylaws and permitting process. Have you?
Sure, it's learning them. And so I download them, I'm studying them, I'm learning each and every one. There's a lot to learn, there's a lot in there. I'm very familiar with reading site plans, as I do every day during.
Well, that's a relevant experience, too.
Very.
The experience is relevant, I feel.
The board typically meets the second Wednesday of the month, and that can vary somewhat. Occasionally, there may be 2 meetings a month. So would that be something that would be manageable for you to attend?
Yes.
Also, the appointment is for the remainder of this fiscal year, which ends on June 30th, plus a 1-year term which expires June 30th, 2019. Are you able to make this type of commitment?
Yes.
The planning board operates under the state open meeting law. Are you familiar with the requirements of that law?
That I am not.
Okay, well, you will need to become familiar. Every employee or every member of a town board or committee is expected to have knowledge of that, so.
I will look that up then.
In other words, ignorance of the law is no excuse when it comes to that, so.
Absolutely. I will.
That's very important.
But it's not that difficult.
If you're appointed, you will be required to take an online state ethics training test. This is required under the state ethics law. You will need to file a notice with the town clerk that you have completed this test. Do you have any issues or concerns about this?
One of the other things, Kevin, they have collaborative citizens training courses. Are you familiar with that?
No, but I
Okay.
be interested.
And, we talked about site plan review. That's one of the courses. Could probably teach the course in construction. But it's very interesting. My first thing I got involved with in the town was the planning board. And I took many of the courses, writing opinions, and also over Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, they hold courses over there, and you can go over there periodically, and then after 7 or 8 courses, you can get a certificate. And it really helps in planning, and to sit down and to do the job as a planner, and it gives you a lot of background. But of course, I think it's really interesting, you have that, in your back pocket already, knowing how to, site plan review. So,
Yes.
No, absolutely, that's very relevant experience, but there is a lot probably that you need to know, like, I'm sure you're probably aware of the zoning bylaws, rules and regs, the process. I mean, it's a big area, and it takes a lot of effort to learn it. But the associate member position is a great way, I think, to get your feet wet, because, enables you to attend meetings, participate, but also learn. And just one caution, the associate member can only vote on special permit determinations. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
I am, yeah.
Well, so basically, the board does site plan review decisions, but also special permit, and you're only allowed to, as an associate member, only allowed to vote on special permit determinations, so just keep that in mind.
Yes.
Anyone want to make a motion to approve the applicant?
I'll give you a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Vote unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Welcome.
Welcome to the town. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Welcome. Again, it's great to see a new member of the board.
Thank you.
Okay, public comment is over. The public hearing was 7:30, so I'll do some general business. General Business 1 is appoint Michael Sabatini as alternate member of the Agricultural Commission and as full member of the Agricultural Commission as of July 1, 2018. I'll read a letter from Libby Tucker, the Agricultural Commission Chair, to the Board of Selectmen. The Agricultural Commission has accepted the resignation of alternate board member Dennis Donahue. We would like to appoint Mike Sabatini, 239 Main Street, Rowley, as his replacement. Thank you for your consideration. Evening, Mike.
How are you?
Good. You have anything to say before we vote on your request?
I've been
Okay.
well versed in farming lately. I've been involved with the Mass Department of Ag at the State House and with MAC as well from the regional and also on in Essex County quite heavily in the last year. And there have not been any positions at the Department of Ag in Rowley, in the Ag Commission. And I was pleased to hear that one opened up, and I got a call from Libby just saying there's a position available, and she would like to have me, so I'm here to fill that need.
Great.
So,
Mr. Chairman, and to follow up on Ms. Tucker's letter, she called me because when Diane Short asked not to be reappointed for FY 19, effective July 1, that the board's motion tonight also include the appointment for Mr. Sabatini to fill the full membership seat as of July 1.
Okay, great. So would someone want to make a motion to appoint Michael Sabatini as alternate member of the commission and as a full member of the commission as of July 1, 2018?
Make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it.
I have one question.
Congratulations.
I'm on the Historic Commission, and I did the ethics course that you were just mentioning that's online. Do I still have to take it for the other one, or is it one
I would get clarification.
one ethics good
I'm
for
pretty sure
all?
it's one, if you take it once, you don't have to keep taking
Yeah.
it,
Okay.
as long as you cover it for the period of time.
When,
Right.
Mr. Chairman, when he will get a notice from Amy, an official action notice documenting the board's vote, that he'll need to present to the town clerk, so that will be forthcoming, later this week.
Okay.
Bring that in, and when you get sworn in, you can get clarification from the town clerk. But I think she should have documentation. I believe you have to take it every 2 years.
That's right. You have to
So,
resubmit it.
depending on the time and when you took it the last, would be a little long.
Thank you.
Great.
Good luck.
General Business 2 is a request from the library to use Town Common for annual vehicle night on Thursday, July 26. We have an email from Hermione Gordon from the library, following up on our conversation, requesting use of the Town Common for vehicle night this year. Our annual vehicle night is scheduled for July 26 with a rain date of October 2nd. Oh, August 2nd. Thank you, Jim. Would someone like to make a motion to approve this request?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All's in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it.
Aye.
I like the rain date,
Yeah.
especially.
Mhm.
It's my birthday.
Oh, okay. Sure it was designed that way. General business number 3, discuss Memorial Day Parade and ceremonies. We have a proclamation from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that should be read during the Memorial Day ceremony. We would like to confirm which selectmen plan to attend the Memorial Day Parade and ceremony, and whether the chairman will be reading the proclamation at the cemetery, at the ceremony. Yes, I will attend and I will read.
I will attend.
We'd just like to let the Rowley Veterans Association know which selectmen plan to be, so
I'm not gonna match it.
at the ceremony,
I plan on being there.
marching, okay. Mr. Murray?
Oh, full board there.
Excuse me, can you open that door? Thank you.
It was so light.
Do we need a vote on that? We don't need a vote
No,
on that.
we just would like to know from you.
General business notice, we have a notice from the Northeast Massachusetts Mosquito Control on aerial application to control mosquito larvae on coastal salt marshes. And we have a letter from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts State Reclamation and Mosquito Control Board. Please include the following press release in the next edition of all Essex County newspapers. The Northeast Massachusetts Mosquito Control and Wetlands Management District anticipates it may be necessary to conduct a helicopter application of the biological larvicide BTI to control mosquito larvae over coastal salt marshes in Salisbury, Newburyport, Newbury, Ipswich, and Rowley during daylight hours between May 20th, 2018 and June 2nd, 2018. The material to be applied, BTI, is a natural bacterium found in soil and water. BTI is very selective larvicide, which is non-toxic to people, as well as fish, birds, and bees, and to virtually all insect species. BTI only affects mosquito larvae and a few closely related aquatic insects in the fly family. The BTI will be applied by helicopter flying low directly over the salt marsh. Residents need not take any special precautions due to the safety of BTI and because the application will occur directly over the salt marsh and not residential uses. We don't need to take a vote on this, right? Correct? General business number 4, sign Massachusetts Department of Transportation, Chapter 90 project request form for work on Tenney Road, Cooper Pond Road, Isabel Circle, and Newbury Road from Boxford Road to Mahaffey Lane. The selectmen need to vote to authorize the use of Chapter 90 funds for the work on Tenney Road, Cooper Pond Road, Isabel Circle, and Newbury Road from the Boxford Road to Mahaffey Lane, and sign the forms where indicated.
I'll give you that motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, I can finish up on general business number 5 before we start the public hearing. That is the Eastern Essex Veterans Services District Reserve a Seat campaign. We have an email from Karen Tyler. Subject is the Eastern Essex District Department of Veterans Services. I would like to enlist your help spreading the word about a Veterans Services initiative. Eastern Essex District Department of Veterans Services is reaching out to local establishments to participate in a Reserve a Seat campaign. As a Veterans Services offer, I am asking local establishments to put a placemat at the highly visible seat or table prior to and including Memorial Day. If willing, I would love to see it happen all year long because our fallen service members deserve to be remembered every day, not just Memorial Day. They would put the placemat at a seat with a drink and a full glass at an empty seat. I am looking to start this initiative on the North Shore. I think there's a simple way to remind people that Memorial Day is more than just a weekend that kicks the start of the summer or just a day off from school. It's a day of remembrance for those who have made the sacrifice so that we can enjoy our summer in a country that values freedom. I encourage any establishment that wishes to participate to contact Karen Tyler, Veterans Services Officer, at 978-356-3915. I'll provide them with a laminated mat to put at a table in their place of business. Any discussion? Would like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Good idea, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
Ever remember them because, like it says, it's not a kickoff to summer.
Right.
It's remembrance of
People
the
tend to think of it
sacrifice.
as, but that's not the purpose of it, right? It's important to remember that.
This is for you.
It's the first volunteer restaurant right here.
Okay, it's 7:30, so we have a public hearing at 7:30. It's a liquor license application, alteration of license premises application filed by Stephen Piero of the Great American Barbecue, 5 Railroad Ave, Rowley. I'll read the notice of the public hearing. Notice is hereby given in accordance with Chapter 138 of the Mass General Laws as amended, that the Rowley Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 21, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. in the Rowley Town Hall, 139 Main Street, Rowley, upon the application of the Great American Barbecue President/owner Stephen Piero for alteration of licensed premises for a building addition for a total of 2,045 square feet inside, including a bar area, and for an outdoor courtyard totaling 1,520 square feet for a total proposed seating capacity of 125 for their existing all-alcohol annual restaurant liquor license. Business is located at 5 Railroad Avenue, currently consisting of a dining room and no bar area. Anyone wishing to comment should attend this hearing. Written comments will be appreciated. I'm going to call for a motion to open the public hearing.
Giving that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The hearing is open. This hearing was advertised in the May 7th, 2018 edition of the Daily News. I'll call the applicants forward and ask them to discuss their application. Good evening.
Aye.
The applicant has paid all taxes, water bills, and electric bills.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Steve Garrett.
And I'm Michelle.
My wife, Michelle.
Nice to meet you.
So we are proposing to put a bar in the existing location. And I have, so maybe you can see this up closely. Would it appear better to see it? Okay. See this from here. So this section in here is existing, probably about in here, where this dotted line is. And we're proposing to knock all this down, front foyer and this building on the side, which is a small function room. Take that down, putting a basement in the whole area, and expanding it out. When we take away this part of the building here, I think it's about 564 square feet. We're adding 864. It's about an additional 300 square feet of space that we're adding in total. So the bar would be here, seating around here.
So you don't have a bar now there,
No.
but you serve liquor,
We
right?
do sort of full license. Moving our entrance here from where it is right here is the porch. Some outside dining out here and some over here, just for seasonal overflow, and when the mosquitoes don't carry you away around here with the salt marsh mosquitoes, which are pretty bad. So, and then enhancing the outside, making the outside look a little different. This is the parking lot here. We're going to be putting shrubs around the back area. And that's about it.
I'd like to add, though, we still hope and plan to keep it as a family restaurant. We'll still have the same portion of the restaurant that we have now over here, which is all over here, which is the main dining area. This was the foyer, and over here was just in the summer that we use sometimes. So we still hope to have families and kids that can still enjoy the barbecue with toys and things like that. We just, in the wintertime, it gets a little tough for us where people don't want to go out and they like to go maybe sit at a bar and watch a game. So that was the main purpose.
There's been a lot of competition for us now. We get very slow during the winter months, where everyone in town has a bar. A lot of people our age, younger, would like to go to a bar, and we go there and dine. When we dine in a restaurant, we like to sit in a bar to watch a game.
Never used to, but now
Never
we
used
do.
to, but now, and it seems to be the norm for a lot of restaurants. They are changing their restaurant to the focal point of a bar now. If you notice, there's a lot of construction going on with them changing it. So we just want to keep up with the times and keep up with the other businesses in town, especially with the new one going in where the Country Garden Inn is. They're gonna have a bar there, and every other restaurant has a bar. We're about the only one that doesn't. We want to go full service, getting rid of all the paper plates, paper products. And we go through quite a bit now, so that'll be reduced to almost nothing. And going to glassware and silverware and plates.
You might want to show them the other side.
And this is what we.
It's not going to be quite as dark as this, though. The materials aren't going to be, it's going to be a little brighter.
We're still deciding what colors to use out front. This is a front entrance. This is a side. That's another side. This is where that outside dining, the front entrance will be coming in this way. And off to the left, there's some outside dining. Visible from all here, these windows here, and this window here, and this doorway, where there's a host station on the other side. So that's all visible with one means of egress out only. And this is the other side here, visible from all these windows. The bar can see this, all the outside, all the servers will be able to see. And the bar is in this area somewhere. And an egress going out only, can't, of course, not going in.
That'll be summer seating, I take it, or
Right here,
in there?
mosquitoes permitting. Because once dusk happens, the mosquitoes swarm like crazy, so.
Is that gonna reduce the number of parking spaces that you have in front of your building, or?
No, not at all.
And you, right now, you do have like a porch or a screened area that, are you
Well, we have that side room.
reducing that?
That room is being knocked down,
Oh.
so we can put this room in. Yeah.
And the only thing is it's being pushed forward just a little bit. There's some berms for where you park, so it comes fairly close to the berms for where you park. So that's where they, like he said, it's an extra 350 feet.
300
Square, 350
feet
square
in
feet.
addition.
In addition,
We're
basically,
knocking
that's.
down a lot of the existing seating right now,
We
taking
rent-
it away.
We closed our Beverly location, we had one a year ago in November. And we renovated the kitchen, we spent almost
lot.
200,000 on the kitchen just to renovate, so it could, it's just a beautiful kitchen now, so it was, a little bit older.
This is the only part we haven't renovated, which is the front where the people dine. All
Yeah.
the kitchen and all everything's updated and state-of-the-art product and
So.
state-of-the-art equipment, so. just
And we
wanna
live
get
in
that front
town.
Looking good. And a lot of the woodwork out here that's out there now is needs work. It's weathered, it's dated, and it needs work. So this was a time to change all that. I didn't want to do the front foyer, but talking to the builder, it needs work. Everything there needs work, so it's really gonna update everything.
Add new smokers and everything?
With that?
Add new smokers?
Sure,
Yeah,
new smokers.
yes, yes,
It's very attractive.
yes, thank you.
I don't think, I'm not aware of any problems you've had up there. You've been there for quite a number of years.
Almost 15 years, yeah.
And I'm not personally aware anyway of any complaints about either the liquor or the establishment in general, so.
No, we have not at all.
And we're hands-on.
We're all-
You guys-
And my
you do
son
run it,
went
you're
to
there.
culinary
We're
school,
there.
we're there all the time.
My son's there now, and he's
You know,
there all
so-
the time.
How late at night are you gonna be open?
Well, we don't want to be late during the week. Weekends, I know that I've seen some of the restaurants, they go up till 10 o'clock.
Yeah, Spuds, I know, I go by there
I
once
think,
in a while.
I think after
Till
that,
about 10 or so.
there's no business, and
Diet down.
trust me, I don't want to stay there at my age. Long day, it's a long day, yeah.
Right, so we don't want to, encourage the riffraff or anything like that. We-
No, I mean, it's still going to stay a family business.
Yeah.
You're looking to run it as a restaurant, not a bar, per
Right.
se.
Restaurant is, in fact, we're working on a menu, enhancing the menu to coincide with the bar. Always, immediately, as soon as people will be sitting, they'll be receiving a menu, asking to eat right away. That's really what we want to do. You can't just make money on the liquor today, it's got to be both.
Sure.
Yeah.
We hope the Patriots are in the playoffs.
They always are.
I know. Yeah, I know. Well,
Will it
good
be
things
done by
come
then?
to an end, though. I don't know.
So the Board of Selectmen is dealing only with the liquor licensure aspect of this.
Yes.
So I understand your application is currently before the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit authorizing this expansion of the building, correct?
Yes, which has been signed past Thursday, was signed and brought to, and approved, and will be delivered by Lisa tomorrow at the clerk's office.
Okay. We have a report from Lisa about the status. I'll just read that. The ZBA members accepted and signed the decision on Thursday, May 17. Tomorrow it will be brought to the town clerk's office where it will stay for the 20-day appeal period. At the end of the appeal period, Mr. Piero, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Peter, yes, correct.
The applicant will be by to pick up the decision and take it to the Registry of Deeds for recording. When I, the ZBA office, receive a copy of the recorded document, I then give to Ken, Inspector of Buildings, which gives him the okay to issue the permit. Okay, so that was the status, that's the status, which confirms what you said. We did not receive any comments on this application, by we, I mean the Board of Selectmen, from the building inspector. However, we did get comments from the town planner, the fire chief, the police chief, and the health department.
Yes.
So I'm going to read those comments into the record, and then I'll ask for questions or comments from abutters or residents of the town.
Will we be able to answer some of those questions?
Sure,
Or,
sure.
okay.
Okay, we have a email from Amy Lyden of the Board of Selectmen office to yourself indicating, I guess, collecting the various comments. So I'll read that email. I have detailed below the comments from the town department heads. The comments that the town department heads have provided on your alteration of premises application. It would be ideal if you can respond to address each item on this list so that we can pass along the information to the Board of Health heads, to the department heads for reconsideration. If it is not possible to do this, please be prepared to address these items at the hearing on Monday at 7:30 p.m. Also, I believe you told Deborah Egan that you had gotten all necessary permits for the town departments, but Lisa from the ZBA informed us that the ZBA hasn't issued your permit yet. We've already addressed that issue. Okay, so the comments from our town planner, Kirk Baker, were as follows. In regards to the American Barbecue ABCC license, the planning board previously commented to the ZBA, which is the permit granting authority for this project, for the proposed exterior layout and facade improvements, finding them to be acceptable, except that additional landscaping along the property boundaries adjacent to the abutting residential properties were recommended. The applicant had agreed to comply with, see attached planting plan. The board's primary concern, however, was to advise the ZBA to conduct a full site plan review of the site, and for which the ZBA should consider hiring a technical review agent. Also, one question that I have at this time is whether there is intended to be any change to the proposed side seating area. The proposed side seating area is accessed. In the ZBA approved plan, there was access from the outside. See the attached elevation depicting open access from the parking area. If they are proposing such a change, the BOS should have the applicant check with the ZBA as to whether such a change to the layout will constitute a modification that would need to be reviewed again by the ZBA. Would you wish to comment to those separately?
Yes, I'd like to. Well, the first one, I think we explained already. The second one, I did show you on the plan here what we were planning on doing, and I think this is what they were referring to. We came in with this.
Vegetation up there?
Right, and we came in with this and showed them that we were gonna put plantings around there. They didn't want any lights from vehicles or whatever to shine on any residents, and they said that looked great, that was fine.
Who's that, they? being-
Zoning.
Zoning board?
Yes, so I don't know why it was mentioned there, is what you're,
I don't know why.
right.
Yeah, I don't
We
know
had
why it was
mentioned
mentioned,
that.
because this was already shown to them.
This is May 15th it was written, so it's probably, today's the, what, 21st?
21st.
Right.
So it's probably,
Yeah.
like the ZBA met after this was,
Maybe.
anyway, so, okay.
And they saw that, so.
Okay.
We'll do that.
And the question about the change, the access, I did have an answer to that in my other folder. Well, there it is. Thank you. Thank you. I called spoke to my architect today about that, and what happened when they were doing these plans here. And then, I don't know how computers work when they're putting these together, but they're in layers, from what I understand. And one of the layers was, if I can find it in here, was
That's right, you can just explain it.
it was not in the computer, and it looked as though it was wide open coming in here. See this spot here?
Okay.
It didn't show the fence, and that's what he's
Okay,
that's what
well,
he's
so
talking
that- so
about.
it's-
But it's just a computer error, or they didn't. Yeah, that's what that was.
Okay.
And when you look at the picture and you see it, you go, "There's no fence there. It's wide open." And all you see is this corral kind of thing here.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what that.
And then the next one?
and
I think that was it.
Yeah,
think that
takes
was
care
it.
of all that in that area.
Fire Chief Broderick's comments were as follows: there is no emergency egress for both outside seating areas other than the entrance doors through the main building. Should have a second access that can only be opened from the inside.
And I addressed that when I showed you these, the egresses here, going out one here for the back. This is what he's talking about, a way to get out. And it's here, and
No, I think that's shown.
And the
very
one up
well
front.
before.
it didn't show it well here. And this is the
Okay, so
the
there-
egress here.
So there is an egress that's open?
Yes, and you can only,
From
of
the
course,
inside.
egress meaning only one way out from
Right.
the inside. Yeah.
Okay, Police Chief Dumas's comments were as follows: there is an appropriate barrier regarding the exterior seating. Cannot tell from the plan how visible this area is from the interior, or how this will be monitored other than wait staff will regularly occupy. This may cover requirement of the ABCC.
I think that was mentioned in the ABCC questions that they give to you when you're filling out all the forms. One was the
The windows in the front.
windows, yeah, which I
Right.
want to show you, the windows that I had mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. That we have, this is the outside here, the side outdoor seating area, and we have windows here. Here, you can't see it because of the lattice work on the top, but here and on the side. So you do get a visual right from the bar, you can see out here. You can also see it, that the servers that are inside can fully see out here. And there will be servers out here, and the manager on duty at all times.
How high is that wall?
Here,
Yeah,
I would guess to say it's 7 feet.
7 feet?
Yeah. And then the other outside area is visible from these windows, and on the other side of that wall is seating, so servers can see outside, managers can see outside. And this door, on the opposite side of this door on the inside, is a host station, which they'll be able to peer right out from the door.
Okay, finally, we received a memo from Frank Marciani, who is a health services coordinator in the town's health department. And it reads as follows: the health department has reviewed the provided application and plan. The applicant's engineer has provided documentation showing the increase to the septic system has been approved by the Department of Environmental Protection. The approval with conditions is attached. The new seating plan has been reviewed, and the applicant confirming the indoor and outdoor seating will not exceed 25 seats. The health department does not have any concern with the proposed expansion and usage. Okay, so there's nothing to address there. Okay, does anyone present, would anyone present like to speak on this application? If you do, please clearly state your name and your address. Ma'am?
Earlene Elliott, 25 Railroad Ave. So I just have a couple of questions. What time do you currently close?
9 o'clock.
Okay. And is the outside area going to be not after dark?
Yes, because,
Most likely.
hopefully, because of, I mean, the mosquitoes are around at 8 o'clock, and no one's gonna sit out there, first of all. It'll be
Okay.
2, yeah,
And
Okay.
dark.
and dark,
Okay.
yeah.
My-
And I'm not promoting.
Yeah, my
Promote.
biggest concern is going to be a noise factor, because I know motorcyclists are very much use your restaurant, and it's a very popular restaurant among motorcyclists.
Some do,
I
not a
know.
lot, we don't
Yeah.
get as many as most do.
Well,
Some.
usually when I
Yeah.
ride by,
Yeah.
there are often motorcycles there. So yes, I'm concerned about what your closing time is going to be, particularly if you're going to be serving drinks, and what the noise factor is going to be past 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Right. And that's in the outside mainly. I mean, because you're not really gonna
Well-
hear on the inside.
No, but if it's open until 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and motorcyclists are there and are taking off at that time of night, that's,
Right.
so my biggest concern is the noise factor.
I will say too, there is a number of people that own motorcycles on that street. We were talking about that actually, there's about
Yes,
6
that's part of
homes
mine.
on the street.
Yeah.
that-
Yes, I
so
know
they're
of
going
2 of
back
them
and
who
forth.
regularly,
Yeah.
were already affected by
Right.
some of that. So, yeah, so that would be my concern, is what the closing hours are going to be, and who establishes that, and,
Are the hours of operation addressed in the ZBA's decision?
They were not. The hours were not.
What does your current license say? Is it listed in the,
That's a good question. I think it's till 11.
Yeah, I think it is still 11.
so you're not changing the hours from what they currently are?
No, I mean, look, I'm conducting the business the same way. Dinner's gonna stop, or serving food will stop at the same time the bar stops also. I won't be serving liquor without food. So we do serve till 9 o'clock now. I think max will be 10 o'clock inside, but, and outside's it's weather permitting, but it's also mosquito permitting. People are just not gonna stay out there at all.
Well, and that, and we're
Past
not,
dusk.
we don't want to put a lot, you'd have to put a lot of lights
And
out
I'm
there
not
and all
promoting,
that, so.
you know, anything out there like lights and all that.
I realize you're competing with other places in town, but very few are as residential
Sure, I
as you are.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why I've tried to stay very close with my immediate neighbors. Haven't had a chance to meet everyone, but,
Yeah.
and a lot of them are in favor of what I'm doing, and I do have all my abutters signed in approval that they are in for it, and they've been happy with us being there for all these years. Most of them would say that. They're thankful we came there and cleaned it up.
Yeah, no, there's been no problem up to this
Yeah,
point.
right.
The concern I have is,
And we're still-
is the hour, is
Sure.
how late you're
Yeah,
planning to stay
yeah, and I don't
open.
blame you, sure.
Yeah,
And,
and serving more alcohol than you've served
Right.
in the past.
But we still want to conduct the business the same way we have for the past 15 years, and we're not going anywhere. We're there, and my son is there, and it's still a family business. And we are fully aware of the neighborhood and it being in a neighborhood. And I try to take special attention to the people that are around me, that were around me.
Yeah. No past complaints. I'm
Right,
just
right,
concerned.
right.
I have no problems with the design and all of that,
Right.
and the outdoor seating. It really is,
Mhm.
it really is a noise factor, and
Right.
how late at night.
So to answer your question, it's dusk.
Yeah,
outside,
dusk,
yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
And we, of course, will be monitoring that quite a
Yeah.
bit,
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
and it's mostly couples out there. We're not looking for young kids to go out there, and that's just not gonna happen.
Yeah.
'Cause we've been there, done that.
Okay, anyone else have any comments or questions?
Hi, Bonnie Berkowitz, 623 Weathersfield Street in Rowley. I just want to commend as a family business, and haven't heard anything negative over the years. It's wonderful. We have a large extended family in the restaurant business, and it certainly is not an easy endeavor. And just thank you and the best of luck. Hopefully it'll be even better going forward.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the members of the board have any further questions or comments?
Good barbecue.
We'll still keep the barbecue too.
Oh, yeah.
I think it'll be an attractive addition to the neighborhood with the renovations, and certainly be an upgrade to that whole area, so it's
We are putting
It's
quite a bit,
positive.
yeah.
Yeah, and we survived through that bridge closing too. that
Yes.
2 years.
That wasn't fun,
Okay, unless there's anything further, I'll call for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll give you that motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 All those opposed? The hearing is closed. Any discussion before we take a vote?
I'm okay. I'm also with it.
Okay, call for a motion to approve the application.
I'll give you that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Any second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Amy will be preparing the local licensing authority summary form tomorrow, and we'll let the board know when this is ready to be signed. The application, along with the summary form, needs to go to the ABCC for review and approval. No, that's okay. Amy's going to be preparing the summary form tomorrow. All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you very much. Yeah, looks good.
Steve, you look good enough to come back and play.
Yeah, I
So, are you willing?
I'd love to.
Well, I'll get in touch. Thank you. He's one terrific soccer player as well, guys.
Thank you. Thank
Good luck.
Well, if we'd known that, we wouldn't have voted right.
Take care. Good luck.
Okay, next on our agenda is the FY19 revised Triton assessment and holding a town meeting and/or special election. This is new business number 1. So the board received an excellent memo from the town administrator outlining the various scenarios that we should consider. I think there's a total of five scenarios, and I thought for the audience at home I'd try to go through them and try to briefly summarize them. One of the scenarios, number 4, is to fund the Triton assessment, which is $314,000 and $314,319. So scenario number 4 is to fund that amount in full from free cash. Our free cash balance as of today is $933,467. As I said, the Triton assessment is $314,319, which would result in a free cash balance of $619,148. So that would be if the town decided to fund the assessment completely with free cash. There's another scenario, scenario number 3, which would not use any free cash, but would basically fund the assessment by reducing all of the new budget increases that the town voted on for fiscal year 19. So in other words, there would be, we would rescind, under this scenario, instead of using free cash, we would rescind reserve fund of $25,000, the additional town planner salary that we approved, which amounts to $19,073, increase police department wages to promote a sergeant, which amounts to over $27,000, increase fire department wages to eliminate the hiring of 2 full-time firefighters, which would amount to over $152,000. To take out the $25,000 that was added to the OPEB trust by the town at the annual town meeting. And that, Debbie, correct me if I'm wrong, that's to cover the Medicare expenses of retired employees, right?
Salary Health Insurance Trust Fund.
Right. Rescind the $50,000 appropriation to our stabilization fund. Rescind $5,000 in tree department expenses. Rescind $10,000 in snow and ice removal. Cut over $5,000 in the outreach coordinator's hours. This would be a subtotal of $319,000, which is slightly over the Triton assessment of $314,000. So those are the two, I guess you call them extreme scenarios. The other two scenarios, basically different variations of what expenses to recover, to reduce in order to make up the assessment. And in the first scenario, we would use $114,000 in free cash. In the second scenario, we would use $139,000. And then the final scenario is to obtain the full amount of the assessment by seeking an override under Proposition 2.5. And this would raise issues about election and town meeting costs and scheduling the override in the town meeting. There's also, in this memo, there's a section on conclusions and free cash summary, which seems very important to me, so I'll read that. The FY17 free cash was certified at over $2 million. This was just over $2 million. This was an unusually high number. Building permit fees were estimated at $180,000, but the actual was $500,000. This was due to large commercial development applications such as biolabs on Route 1. This is a one-time revenue. The actual motor vehicle excise taxes came in at just over $1 million, and the estimate was $815,000. We also had unexpected FY17 budget lines due to unfilled positions and balances in expense budgets. We used $865,000 of free cash in the FY19 budget. We used an additional over $224,000 at the April 30th, 2018 special town meeting. So the total amount of free cash used for the FY19 budget was $1,089,450. So the current balance remaining of free cash is $933,467. Free cash is a one-time revenue, and the town's financial advisors have said using no more than 50% of free cash, which I guess we've already done, in the operating budget is a good fiscal practice. In other words, you shouldn't use more than 50% of free cash. The use of free cash to plug a hole in the budget is not a good practice and can affect the town's bond rating. The town still has $20 million more to borrow between the Pine Grove School project and the police and fire project. Standard & Poor's has rated the town at AA+, which is a very good rating, which gives us a lower interest rate. The concern now for the town should be what impact the FY 2020 Triton assessment will be for the town. We may be faced with significant budget reductions next year. So those are the scenarios.
Mr. Chairman, I've spent some time going through the annual budgets for the last few fiscal years, and we allocate to Triton in all these years approximately $200,000 a year, depending on how much new growth there is, and that varies from one year to the next. Like this past year, there was a lot of new growth out on Route 1, but normally sometimes it's above that, sometimes it's below that, along with a 2.5 increase. Now, if you go back to FY13, the Triton budget increased by $274,000. At that time, we used $74,630 of free cash to supplement the Triton budget. The following year, we actually, in FY14, the budget went up a little less than that, $209,000. We only used $9,168 to supplement out of free cash. FY15, for whatever reason, the school budget takes a big jump. In FY15, our increase from Triton was $381,674. At that time, we had to use $181,674 out of free cash. FY16, the budget went up, our assessment went up by $385,783, which required us to take $185,783. FY17, the Triton budget took an even bigger increase, given us an assessment of $484,998. We had to put in $284,998 from free cash. FY18, the current year, the increase to our budget was $456,159, which required us to use $256,159. So over that 6-year period, we actually increased our payments to Triton by $2,192,000. That's anybody that says that we're not properly funding our school system, I think needs to take a look at the budget and to see what's being done. The proposed budget for FY19, the increase for the year went from $456,159 to $699,711, which if we funded that through the free cash, it would be $499,711. Now, as a result of the override not passing, the budget was reduced. So at this point, our assessment is $514,319. And that's why we're looking to fill the gap of the $314,000. So if you look at that, we're over 7 years, we're rapidly heading for a $3 million increase in the Triton budget in the last 7 years. As the town administrator mentioned in her memo, as we look at this year, there was $1 million in pay increases for Triton. I'm assuming next year that it's probably going to be somewhere, I'm guessing, I don't know the figures, but $750,000. I'm assuming that Triton is going to want to put back what they took away this year, which is another $600,000. That's before they do any other increases for increased expenses for next year. So whatever we do this year, we are looking next year at a real problem. And keeping in mind that it isn't just Rowley. We're looking at Newbury is funding theirs. They did pass the override, but in the last 2 fiscal years, Newbury actually had a reduction in the Triton budget due to changes in student enrollment. Salisbury, when we were at the meeting the other night, Joe and I and Larry and Bernie, Salisbury was, at that point, I don't know what they're doing now, but they were talking about having a new override vote because they don't have enough free cash, they said, to cover their increase. So Triton is giving us a real problem. I mean, obviously we have to fund it somehow because we're obligated to. We have no choice. They set the budget and they hand us the bill. So we're here trying to figure out the bill. The one last thing I would like to mention in relation to how those increases kept going up every year, year over year. In the 2000-2001 school year, Triton had 3,587 students. In the 2015-2016 year, Triton had 2,692 students. So over that 15-year period, they dropped almost 900 students. And yet our assessments keep going up by large amounts. So, I mean, something in next year's budget, something has to give. Triton has to figure out, we need to figure out where is the money going and how are they budgeting, because they're losing students and yet the budget is ever increasing. The last 3 years, I mean, this year's increase request of almost $700,000 is just over the top, and they've made no. Joe and I went to almost every school committee meeting from September on explaining the town situation, and we were basically looked at and kind of, I wouldn't say we were ignored, but we certainly didn't get any positive feedback that they were interested in what we had to say. And obviously when they passed the budget, it didn't matter. The school committee says that they're there for the kids, and that's fine, but they're also there for the kids with the amount of money that the town's can afford to pay. If we can't afford it, then something has to give. So there is obviously we've got a number of scenarios here, and I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say, whether we reduce budgets and or use free cash or a combination of both. The only other thing I would like to say is the chief of police come in and wanted a sergeant's position, which, as a former police officer, supervision is critical to us. It's critical in terms of we have a lot of young patrolmen out there that we've seen appointed the last couple of years. The fact that they need a sergeant supervising is a critical importance, especially if something goes wrong. Liability is a huge concern. Fire chief's been coming in to see us for years about hiring additional full-time firefighters. I mean, there are times when he tells us, and I hear that, you know, if a fire alarm comes in on a Sunday, a weekend, or a holiday, and the chief and one man respond because everybody else is out of town. The old days, the call firefighters all worked in town or around town all the time. These days, we got a lot of good call firefighters. I'm not downgrading them at all, but they all work out of town, and they all have family obligations and the amount of training and so on and so forth. So I don't want to see either the police sergeant eliminated and or the firefighters eliminated. And then the final big one is the planning board. And Cliff, you've been on the, Mr. Chairman, you've been on the planning board. You realize how much work is going on over there. People want, you know, they want to look at the town bylaws. They want to look at the zoning. They want to have all these things. So how do we increase business? Well, that's the purview of the planning board. And we have a part-time planner who doesn't have a secretary, so he does all his own secretarial type work. We've increased that to be a full-time position, and as the town moves forward, when I came to town, there was 3,000 residents. Now we got over 6,000. So the town has grown by leaps and bounds. And we really haven't kept up in any of these departments. And it's time to, every year we say, no, we won't do it because we give the money to the school. And this year we did have, as the memo said, an exceptionally high amount of free cash, which we get castigated for as if we don't know what we're doing. Well, we do know what we're doing. And one of the reasons why we've tried to keep some extra free cash is because we know the school budget, and we don't hear the school budget till March. It's gonna hit us hard. And if you go back and look, the office staff here did a memo on our free cash. If you go back beyond, I believe, 2011 or 2012, we used every bit of free cash every year to fund the budgets. We had nothing left over. The last few years, we've made a real attempt to both put money in the stabilization fund. When I came on the Board of Selectmen in the early 90s, we had zero free cash and probably $50,000 in the stabilization fund, which was a joke. We've all worked hard here over the years, and most of us have been here for a long time, to increase the stabilization fund. So if something does happen, we lose a boiler in a building, we have a major fire of a town building, we need to be able to have a pot to go to get money. Free cash is up and down from one year to the next. We have no idea what next year's free cash is going to be. So if we can, and that's one reason why the last 2 or 3 years we've been carrying, you know, try to carry $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in free cash for the following year, because it gives us our ability to fund budgets. And like I say, between the schools, and it's not only Triton, it's Essex Aggie, and it's Whittier. Whittier was an increase this year of $45,000 over last year for a small number of students. So I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say, but I think that the townspeople need to understand that, you know, budgeting is a difficult process, and our budget and the ability to fund our town offices, we literally wait to see what Triton is going to give us for a bill, because they are 50% of our budget. And because we have absolutely no control over it, they take what they want, and then we're left with what's left for the rest of the town. And the last few years, we've done an outstanding job, I feel, and I commend the office people here and the other boards, the treasurer, the accountant, and Sean from the assessor's office. They all work together to put us on a good, solid footing. And it's important because as we're going through these bond issues now, and the treasurer's here, she knows that if we don't have money set aside and don't have our bond rating goes down, and you're not going to add an extra 0.5 or 0.75% to a bond rating over 20 years for $50 million, you're talking some substantial amount of money. So, you know, whatever we decide here to do, I mean, absolutely, I'm not in favor of another override, that's for sure. And we have the funds. And I hate to see these other positions get cut back. My preference would be to see, let's just let's fund it with free cash and bite the bullet. No matter what we do, next year is going to be difficult. If Triton comes in with another increase like they've got this year, we're going to have a problem. There may be layoffs and stuff at that time, but I just think our town employees work hard. The departments put a lot of time and effort in, and if we can throw them a police sergeant and 2 firefighters, which benefits everybody in town. Nobody wants to have an emergency and have no one show up. So the schools are important, kids' education is critical and important, but so isn't our public safety, and we've been years plowing snow every year. There's a huge snow deficit. The last few years we've increased by 20,000 every year the snow budget, and I think that's of critical importance, because if we don't fund that, we take the money out of next year's budget. This year we added an extra $50,000, which probably is nowhere near enough, right up and down Dodge Road, Daniels Road, Haverhill Street, and see all the dead trees. Those are a public safety hazard if one of them comes down through somebody's windshield. So, we've got a lot of priorities we have to deal with here, and I just feel that, my own thing is let's put the free cash towards it, leave these other departments alone for a year, and then next year we're going to have a problem anyway. We'll kick the ball down the road, I guess, but, if we can, we'll still have $600,000 carried over. And if we want to take it all out of town departments and the school and the residents and the school parents see us, we got $900,000 free cash carried forward to next year. They're going to want to look at that and take it anyway. So I think we need to split up and use the free cash, and let's move forward and have a town meeting and appropriate that and get it done with and start looking at next year's budgets. Thank you.
I'd like to emphasize one big point. When we passed the balanced budget on April 30th, presented by Chairman Larry White from the Finance Committee, we have already given Triton $200,000. And so this assessment, the total assessment as you gave is $514,313. And that's 2.5 times what we sent in our letter back in October, that we could afford to pay for the Triton assessment. The Triton assessment originally started out at $997,000 to the town, and I was told that budget was cut to the bone. They managed by the March 15th deadline to cut that budget, and so the assessment was about $737,000. And that's what we defeated in the at town meeting and the voting on May 8th. And we for $514,000 or $530,000 over and above our $200,000 that we voted at town meeting in our balanced budget. I thought that was excessive, and I was very pleased to see that the people in the town voted overwhelmingly to defeat that Triton assessment. I'm still concerned about this one. It's still 2.5 times more than what we agree is 50% of our increase, 2.5, Prop 2.5 increase. I think it's too much, but I would not want to see everything come out of free cash. It might work this year, but it's certainly not going to work in the future. I don't want to see us lose any, either one of the 2 fire department positions. I think that's important for our future. And I would like to, again, support the police department wages to put on the new sergeant. That's my feelings on the matter.
Well, 2.5% was $373,000 this year. Our new growth was $72,000 for a total of $426,000. We offered half of that to Triton again, and now we have to make it up to a grand total of $514,000, correct? Add another $300,000 to this. I think though the townspeople of Salisbury and the townspeople of Rowley sent a message to Triton, and it seems that Triton is not hearing the message because they still want $300,000 from the town. I've been sitting here for 10 years. This is my 10th year. I have not heard the Triton people come down and ask what the town can afford in those 10 years. It is just a bill passed down to us. This is like old county government, and that's why we don't have old county Essex government anymore, where there is, and every time I hear the word regionalization, I shudder, because it's like old county government. Here's the bill, pay it, and you have nobody to sit and defend us. I'm speechless when it comes to, when I think of the school board. The school board, we go up there and we're only allowed 3 minutes to speak to them, and then we're cut off. This can't continue. We can't go into free cash. If we do this, eventually, we're gonna run out of money. It may not, it's not gonna happen this year. Maybe down the road, 2 years, maybe the year after, but we're gonna be in a budget crisis like you won't believe. Triton needs to get a control of their budget. And if they don't, there is gonna be a crisis between the towns and the schools. And a few years ago, when I was chairman, we had to cut the budget 2.5% across the board to every department. I don't want to go through that, and that will be nothing compared to what will happen in the future. A 2.5% cut will be a bump in the road compared to what will happen down the road. I hear what Dave said, and I see the scenarios in front of us. I don't want to use all the free cash because I'm afraid of what's going to happen next year. We have to keep something in our pocket as we go forward. I see next year as a disaster. As I look back on my 10 years here, every year we go through this. And there doesn't seem to be any give from the other side. We spend 60% of the town's budget on schools. Triton, in Whittier, and Essex Aggie. 60% goes to the schools. The schools we looked at, they asked for a stadium. The townspeople came forward and voted to put money forward for the stadium. Pine Grove School, the people came forward and voted for the school. I think the townspeople of Rowley have been more than generous. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
If I could just add one further comment, though. Every year, I've been on the board for 7 years, relatively new compared to most, but every year we send out a budget notice to all department heads. And every year in that 7-year span, except for the first year where we had the 2.5% cut, it's level fund your budget. Every year to every department in this town. And we can't keep doing that. Triton isn't level funding their budget, but we're expected to. That isn't fair for the town.
Karen, as treasurer, can I put you on the spot?
Certainly.
And ask you, in your opinion, what effect paying this assessment solely with free cash would possibly have on our bond rating?
The problem is that that's your savings. That's your, basically, this is, okay, you didn't spend all your money. You were fortunate enough to have these building permits, which Sean will back me up on this, are not going to be resulting in property taxes. These were one-time,
Sure.
These are one-time things. And what the bond ratings do is they look at, what's your bottom line? What are your assets? And when you have free cash, that is an asset, right? That's increasing your fund balance. When you spend that, it's gone. And it's now in your budget, and the next year you have to come up with that money again. And, you know, if you don't have free cash, you know, it's kind of like buying a car with your tax refund. And then, you know, knowing you have 5 years to make payments on that. Well, you know, it's really good the first year because, you know, you have a tax fund that'll pay it off for, you know, the first 6 months. But eventually, there's no money to pay it. And the bond rating agencies look at that fund balance. You know, that's your free cash, it's your stabilization, it's your assets. So, you know, ideally, you don't want to use any free cash in your budget. You want to be able to fund your budget through your operating revenues. And, you know, as you're spending money to fund your budget from, you know, an unreliable future source of income, they don't look favorably on that. And I would, you know, I'm going to make another statement, is that, you know, we're not investing in our employees. We have employees that for the last 2 years will actually take home less money because their increase in health insurance is more than their raises.
Yeah, not surprising.
Yeah, and you know, it's not an exception. It happens a lot. So, you know, that's another investment that I think the Board of Selectmen really needs to look at.
How can we attract, Karen, you're absolutely right. How can you attract a good employee to your town when we pay the health? What do we pay now?
We pay 57.5%.
57 and a half.
52
I'm
and a
sorry,
half.
52.5%.
52.5%. And then the
employees
employee,
will pay 47.5%, yeah.
and we're trying to attract an employee to come to work to our town.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Chairman, we offer a dental plan, but the town doesn't contribute anything. So unlike others, you know, the school district, for example, where their benefits are much, you know, much more generous, we can't afford it, and we can't see in the foreseeable future that we'll be able to increase anything like that. But when you come into an orientation and we're the personnel department, an employee finds out what the health insurance amount is, they have some second thoughts about whether or not they want to accept the position. Because when the employer is paying the 52.5%, they can go to another town or another place to work where the health insurance will be at a better rate for them.
And we give them a pay raise, and the pay raise is eaten up.
Well, that's exactly what's
Right,
happening
with the
in
health
fiscal
insurance.
19.
And it happened in fiscal 18 as well.
Yeah.
If I could, I know I only said one more, but I want to take on, again, I would like to call on Chairman Larry White and in a statement that he made at town meeting. This is not a one-time assessment. This is a permanent increase to the tax rolls. So what we're going to, in this, we're adding $300,000 on, and that will be carried next year in addition to whatever Triton comes in with for next year. It's not a one-time assessment.
As we sit here and we do the budget every year, and Cliff, you'll now, this year as chairman, you'll sit here and you'll do the budget, and it'll be, what, $16 million roughly, the town budget, and we 60% automatically goes to schools, understood, and then with that 40%, we dwindle it down, okay, because of health insurance and liabilities, and you cut that down. And what we're running the town on is about $2 million. Am I correct, roughly? And then about, and then you have, you know, police, fire is about a million. I'm doing this from memory, and my memory could be wrong here, but then you have to run the town about $1 million. Okay, so you got $1 million, and then you have an increase like this, okay, and of $300,000, and now you can see what the impact is to the running of the town. So $300,000 is a lot of money to our budget. I want people to understand, and that's why I get my hackles up when we start talking about this all the time. The schools have to get a hold of their budget and rein it in.
Mr. Chairman, Just roughly, when I went through my figures, I didn't indicate the total. In the last 7 years, we've put about $1 million worth of our free cash into the school budget. And as the treasurer said, that isn't a one-time payment. That's added on to each year's budget in addition to the year before. So, you know, when we use free cash, we try to use it for capital expenses and one-time expenses, so that if the money's not there next year, I mean, we're depending on free cash, and it's been higher the last few years than what it had been. But by using free cash, we're depending on the fact that we're going to get more money in next year on more people are going to buy new cars, more building permits are coming. You know, well, at some point that isn't going to happen anymore. And when we have to fund larger and larger amounts each year, like I say, Triton wanted $600,000 this year. That's, it's just crazy. But we have to figure out, we have to come up with the funds, because we have no choice at this point but to fund that deficit. We got to come up with $315,000. And all I'm saying is that, you know, I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. I put a lot of time into going through town reports and looking up information, but I just feel personally that, as much as I hate to use, if we use the $314,000 in free cash to fund this budget, which is about the amount we've been using every year, we're still going to have $600,000 carried over. And I think we need to start going up to the school committee every single meeting and explaining to them. And I don't know what, like I say, I don't know what Salisbury's going to do. If Salisbury doesn't pass an override, I don't know, they will be cutting positions. But we've been fighting to improve town departments, and the treasurer is absolutely right that we'd love it. I'm the chairman of the personnel board, and we need to increase how much of our health insurance we cover for our employees. We'd like to give them, our employees for the last 10 years have gotten 2.25% raise per year. The recent Triton contract gave their employees 2.75%, as well as all the step raises in between. Our 2.25% includes a step raise. So, I mean, we're giving our employees next to nothing. And Triton hands us last fall a letter saying they're giving out $1 million worth of raises, which that alone means we got to, just if they do nothing else but the $1 million in raises, we're taking money out of our free cash.
Dave, nobody came down here and said, do you have the money?
Well, when we went up there, we were kind of hit with a cold shoulder. So
yeah, nobody asked it. Do you have that money? Are you capable of paying that amount of money?
So all I'm saying in this argument here is that as far as I'm concerned, I want to vote to take the $314 out of free cash. We need to support our fire department. We need to support our police department. We need to support our planning board. And moving forward, we need to look at what we can do for our town employees. I'm tired of bending over every year to the school committee, and I'm totally in favor of the school kids. I understand, but something's wrong when we're down 1,000 kids over the last 15 years, and yet we're paying $2 million more in assessments. I mean, there's something isn't right.
I hope Triton listens, because the town of Rowley and the town of Salisbury sent a message.
I think Newbury's only.
Will they listen, and did they get that message? And will anything change next year?
Chairwoman's right here.
Ernie, you've been trying.
One more thing. Newbury's only in the position they are because the last 2 years, because of the student population changes, they actually had a reduction in their budget for 2 years in a row of about $200,000 each year. So I mean, come next year, they're going to be in this. Even though they passed the override, it's these kind of budget increases every single year. If we had to fund an extra $100,000 out of free cash, that's one thing, but not the kind of money that we've been putting every single year.
I'm just afraid that if we fund $300,000 now, okay, and we drain down to $600,000, it's almost like, it's like buying a lottery ticket and saying, gee, I hope it comes in next year and it funds my mortgage.
But if we leave $900,000 there, Bob, for next year, then everybody looks at it and says, and we see it in the computer. All the people complain, look at all the money they're salting away down there.
No idea.
They act like we're putting it in our own pockets.
No, they have no idea when you sit here at this table and you do that budget. That
we need to look at what the next 2 years' budgets are going to be. In other words, we don't just do this year. We have to look forward to what's next year going to be. And right now, Triton is going to be another disaster next year, as near as I can see. And if we want to do anything for our own town employees or town departments, we really can't, because we're limited by waiting for the bill from Triton to see what they charge us. And under the current state laws, we're obligated. We have no choice. We have to pay the Triton assessment. Whatever the school board up there dictates, that is what we have to pay. We have to come up with the money one way or the other.
Well, if we chose the override option and assume it's voted down, the way I read the state's guidelines, Triton at that point would not be required to revise its budget. Rather, it would be determined by the state. So,
you know what the state's going to do.
Yeah, what are they going to do?
They're going to follow Triton's lead, because they're the ones that write the laws.
You would think so.
They're not going to look say, "Oh, poor Rowley."
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know what Salisbury's planning on doing. But at this point, I just want to move on, but I don't want to penalize some of the moves we're making for our departments that badly need. Not only for those departments, but we're talking public safety issues. Of 2 firemen and a police sergeant is a public safety issue. So,
Bernie.
Yeah, first of all, I think we should acknowledge the new chairman of the school committee, Narissa, who I think has done a truly outstanding job in terms of mobilizing a political effort to get the state to step up. But that's, in my mind, I followed it in detail for 3 years. This is only half the battle. And so I think if Narissa is here, then it would be interesting to hear from Narissa what plans the school committee has and the school administration has going forward to manage what looks like a problem in FY20, to look at the negotiations which are going to take place in the near term on the benefits that are offered to all the school district employees, and then beyond that, then the next contract cycle for all the employees. So there are 3 big gets there that I think we should hear from Narissa as to what kinds of processes and plans and specific objectives the school committee has to address those issues. Because I don't think you guys can be any more specific and concrete about the issues are. And the chairman of the school committee is here. Puts her on a spot, but she must have known that she was going to be on the spot when she bravely stepped forward. So, Narissa.
Thanks, Bernie. So appreciate that. So some of that I can't speak to because we haven't had the conversation committee yet, and I'm not going to speak for the committee. In that I'm the chairperson, I'm the speaker for, but I cannot speak on things that we haven't actually discussed and voted on yet. The state
but for
funding,
yourself.
I'm not going to speak for myself because I speak for the committee as the chair.
Okay.
I wouldn't expect Cliff to come in and speak for the entire opinion of the committee if the committee hasn't discussed something.
Okay.
What we have discussed, obviously, at length is the state funding. So that's something that we're actively going after. I know Dave talked about, refer to you, Selectman Peterson, talked about how, the enrollment has trended down. The other thing that's trended down over the last 15 years is state funding. We're literally getting, I think it's $118,000 less this year than we were in 2004. So costs continue to go up and state funding continues to get less. At the same time, as our enrollment has gone down, our special education children, both as a number of children and as a percentage of our school children, have actually gone up. So those children tend to be a more expensive educational service. Some of them are out of district. We can have students who have requirement to go into literally a residential program that can cost between typically $300,000 and $350,000 a year. So that's a significant expense when you're looking at that. And we have, I think we sent another 9 children, students out of district last year. It's a significant expense when we have to pay our consortium or a school that provides an appropriate education for them to educate those students. And we have to pay to transport them there as well. So the state funding is something that I can definitely talk to. I know that the Personnel and Negotiation Committee has already been discussing the PEC agreement, which will be the healthcare next year. To the best of my knowledge, I don't believe we've looked farther than that, given that that's their current task, to look at the teacher contract for the year after that. We are doing a entirely soup to nuts special education review to make sure that we're providing appropriate services, and if we can find anything in those services that's not required to provide an appropriate education to the students that fall under that, that will definitely be considered. And we just did a personnel review as well to make sure that we needed all the personnel that are in the schools. To my thinking, and I fully understand where you're coming from, when we first saw this budget, I said it's going to be on the taxpayers, it's going to be on the towns, or it's going to be on the schools. And unfortunately, that's what it's come down to. I mean, I think that is an entirely true assessment of what has happened here. Our costs go up, the state funding goes down, and unfortunately, the towns have had to bear the burden of that. The schools have cut in general education. Our special education costs have gone up, and our healthcare costs have gone up, but our general education has gone down, and we have more students in a classroom now than we have typically had in the past. When we continue to cut general education, which is the one place where we are really able to cut, that affects the students that are in those average classrooms, your average 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 12th grade classroom every single day, and that's unfortunate. One of the things that we have seen with other districts is that when they start cutting whole programs and they start cutting heavily into those general education classrooms, they tend to lose a lot of students to school choice, which takes the ability to control our costs to the degree that we have out of our hands. They tend to lose more of those students to charter schools, which again takes our ability to control our costs out of our hands. It's just a set amount that we have to pay at that point for those students. Essentially, think of it as tuitioning out. Those districts also tend to see families moving out of town. They're moving to districts that can provide their students, the children of those families, with a better opportunity. And I think that's one of the things that we've been able to trying to guard against, because those things are all bad. And try and find a balance. I recognize it's not a balance that has worked for the town. We're looking at all our options to try and make this more palatable. The other thing that we need to do, I know Selectman Peterson talked about the Triton budget increasing. I think what he was actually referring to was the Rowley assessment increasing. And one of the things that we have pushed heavily for over the last 2 years, and I hope are finally getting going on, is looking at the assessment calculation. Because part of the reason that Rowley has gone up is because they're bearing the burden versus some of the other towns. To the idea that enrollment has gone down for Newbury and that has affected their assessment calculation, that's definitely part of it, but the other piece of it is effort reduction, which is part of the state's calculation. It's something that we are locked into using right now, and I personally, and I can speak for the committee on this since we've had this discussion, would like to move away from that, but we need the 3 towns working together in order to be able to do that. That's one of the things that have, even as Triton's budget has been a relatively small increase, has increased Rowley's assessment so heavily. So that's another thing that we're working heavily on, to try and control that assessment calculation beyond the actual budget itself.
Narissa,
Mm-hmm.
on the state funding,
Mm-hmm.
when the state funding comes in, that is by pupil, isn't it?
There are a number of different funding sources. The main Chapter 70 calculation is a per pupil driven calculation.
Per pupil.
Yes.
So if you have less students, your state funding is going to be less.
Not necessarily, because it also depends on the number of homeless students that you have in your district, the number of special education students. So it's not
wholly, but that does affect it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Larry?
Several things. One, I wanted to point out that the Finance Committee, we look at, during the budget season, which is about 2.5 months, every line item, every sub-line item. In the town budget, we'll say, for instance, the selectmen's budget might have a certain amount for expenses. that line item might have 20 different sub-line items that the Finance Committee looks at and examines and see how reasonable it is. Every month, starting in about July or August, we monthly review all the department budgets to see how they're going, to see if they're going to be on track and whether they're going to be over or under or have any problems. So we're trying to anticipate everything so that when we go to town meeting and say, okay, here's a balanced budget, we, the Finance Committee, feel very confident in that. I would recommend using all the free cash if Triton had a one-year hiccup in their budget. But Triton has been constantly increasing their budget every year to the point where Triton, as far as a lot of people are concerned, has no credibility in their budget, okay? So I would like to have the policeman and the fire, those departments, remain. You know, we need them. We've level funded for too long not to afford those people. You know, my instinct says take it from somewhere else, but I think I have to agree somewhat with Dave that we bite the bullet on this. There are areas in Triton's budget where they refuse to cut back on. We were just talking about the medical percentage. They dropped theirs from 75-25 to 70-30. It could have been dropped to 60-40. They came up with the final budget in March that had about supposedly 5 pages of wish list items that weren't in the final budget. Excuse me, if it's in the final budget as far as the late buses, free kindergarten, all these other things, it's in there somewhere. The way that their budget runs is just a top-down, take it or leave it. We're going to keep increasing it every year. They're going to look at the budget for this year as the baseline for next year. So it's grown by $3 million. That's the baseline for next year. And then they're going to add on to that all of the things that they couldn't push through and ramrod through this year. And then add on to that. That's what they've been doing. If they get money back from the state as far as differences and things like that, they use it for funding their own projects. You know, that's our money. That's the town's money. That should go back to the town as a credit for next year's assessment. No, I agree with you. We have to do something. Triton, the word that comes to me is stewardship. We give them money and say, spend it wisely. And they go off without any input or listening to any input from us and blow everything and come back and say, oh, by the way, we need more. It's unacceptable. I don't know how it's going to change. It has to change. I've been to their finance committee meetings. I've talked with them about you've got to get in touch with the towns, find out what they could afford. absolutely nothing. Triton doesn't care, basically. Sorry to say it, they don't care. And we all suffer from it.
Bernie?
Yeah, I'd like to relay one story. I didn't observe the video, so I don't know how accurate this rendition was, but Jim Sullivan from the Newburyport Daily News called me, sent me an email and asked me, well, does the Board of Selectmen ever get a chance to go through the school budget line by line to determine where savings can be made? And I said, well, why do you ask? Well, he said he'd just seen the mayor of Amesbury go through the school budget in Amesbury line by line, live, and close the gap between what Amesbury can afford and the school budget there and then by going down through the budget line by line, basically exercising a veto on the expense. Now, we're not set up to do that. I understand that, but somebody needs to do it. And I'm asking Narissa that mechanism basically be constructed within the school committee and the school department.
If they had lump sum of money, okay, they were given the lump sum money up front, here it is, you have to live with that lump sum money. And that's basically what happens in a Amesbury, Ipswich.
Right.
Here it isn't, it's regional, and it's kind of like county government. Here's the bill, fund it, next.
Can I give you a history of how we got here?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, Debbie, did you have something to say?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to clarify, when on these scenarios, in terms of the police and fire under scenarios 1 and 2, we're looking at a phase-in approach, and part of the issue is with this uncertainty, with this Triton budget, in order for us to fully fund, for example, 2 full-time firefighters, and put them on the payroll in July 1, we would have to be working on that now, and we've held off. So that's why I'm saying we, on these scenarios, postpone the hiring on scenario 1 of 2 full-time fighters until after January 2019, because there's some work we will need to do with those new positions and discussing it with the fire union and posting and advertising and interviewing. We would be starting that now normally, under normal circumstances, but because of the uncertainty with this budget, we haven't begun any of that, so we wouldn't be putting somebody on the payroll on July 1st, excuse me. So that's why I suggested a phased-in approach. And then under scenario 2, which the fiscal department heads, my colleagues and I kind of recommend is the scenario 2, it would be, we're suggesting covering the hiring of 2 full, not going with 2 full-time, go with 1, hire them later on in the fiscal year, because once again, we haven't started that process yet. And if there has to be a situation in fiscal 20, we're not looking at laying off 2 employees, which is a cost in itself. You'd be looking at laying off 1. That's why we did that. And same with the sergeant, and I was looking at reducing the total amount of what we would need for a new sergeant for 52 weeks of the fiscal year. If we, by the time we start that process, once again, of recruiting a sergeant, advertising, interviewing, and the promotional process, if we put that off till October or November, was what I was saying under scenarios 1 and 2. So I did have a conversation with both chiefs about that. We can't start anything till we get the direction from the town.
And I agree with Dave. What Dave said about, a sergeant, especially the way things are today with police forces, supervision is so necessary.
Yes, and so I just want to clarify that. I'm not saying under scenario 1 or 2 that things are cut in its entirely.
Delaying it.
But you need to be aware, at this point already, we haven't started the process for this. And so there is money right now for 52 weeks of the year, and what we're saying is to just reduce that, because we need some time to work on this, and we won't know until after the June 18th town meeting.
And how do the police chiefs feel about
Well, they understood the situation. They, a disappointment, but if we can still have a sergeant and just look at phasing that in and making that appointment sometime in the fall, because of the time it will take anyway, that we haven't started doing now. He understood that. And in terms of the fire department, that's a bigger hit, but each scenario is once again postponing the hiring of 2 full-time firefighters until after January 2019. It's gonna take some time, as I said, to do it anyway, or look at just hiring 1 full-time firefighter later on in the fiscal year.
And so, under option 1, deferring the sergeant for a few months and postponing the hiring until January would reduce the amount of free cash we'd have to use by $110,000.
Yes, because once again, we're gonna have to have time to do this anyway. We're not.
Right. I mean, that seems to be that seems to be a good point.
I just wanted to make sure that we're all aware. It takes time
Right.
to do this, and we haven't been. We had town meeting April 30th, but I've told the planner. He's asked me several times. He's part-time. What is his future? I said, don't make any plans until we know exactly what's going to happen. So there are concerns from a lot of department heads, and we haven't made any. We're not planning on the budget that we approved on because we weren't sure what was going to happen.
We so need the planner.
Well, that's why on scenarios
We
1 and
really
2,
do.
you don't see that. We're
Because-
recommending the scenario 2.
Our bylaws have to be updated.
No, we absolutely agree.
Well, he's the planner is our economic development person.
Absolutely.
And so, to the extent we limit him, we're
Yeah.
shooting ourselves in the foot in terms of attracting commercial development.
There's so many things that we need him to be at the North Shore Home Consortium. If he has time to manage the federal HUD money, there's so much work to be done that we can't get done because he's one person 23 hours a week with no clerical help. So
It's only what, $19,000 anyway. I mean,
exactly.
It's not a huge hit.
And the outreach coordinator, we didn't include in scenarios 1 and 2, because we've seen an increase in the baby boomers and the elderly population in the community are utilizing the senior center. And we have to remember, there are different programs in the senior center. Some are social programs. There are at different stages in the elderly community, there are different needs. And the outreach coordinator is dealing with shut-ins, they're dealing with family members who are trying to, that are out of town, and it's really a social worker position. And we're asking for 13 hours a week from 7. And, we're talking about a large increase in the elderly population. And that's why it's not in scenario 1 and 2.
I would, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
In looking at scenario 1, and I've had discussions with the town administrator, I mean, we're at wit's end here in terms of what to do and how to do it. The fire department really concerns me, because the fire chief has said, I mean, yeah, it'll take 2 or 3 months, but if we can get 2 firefighters in September, I think that's beneficial to the town. Whether we use $114,000 in free cash or $314,000, that doesn't really affect our total value of how much we have and looking at bond ratings, et cetera. If you take the $5,000 for the free department, we just drive up and down the roads. We're putting $50,000, the tree department putting extra. We're putting ourselves in a position that somebody's going to get hurt or worse if we don't start taking care of these trees. And I don't think $55,000 is going to do it all in 1 year anyway. But we need to get a start, and I hate to see that money reduced. Snow and ice. Every year, practically, we end up taking money out of free cash at the end of the year to subsidize what the overspending in snow and ice. So, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're not gaining anything here. But OPEB, we owe, I don't know, $10 million in to OPEB. I mean, that's in all of our lifetimes combined, we're never going to catch up with that. So I don't care if we don't put $25,000 in that. That's fine. Stabilization, $50,000. We've gone from having no stabilization 15 years ago to having a little over $1 million, which is, once again, it's critical. But whether you leave it in stabilization or put it in free cash, it's kind of like the same money. It's just which hole have you got it in. But I mean, to get through this, and if the chiefs have been understood, I will go along with, and it's not up to me, obviously, it's the board, but trying to come up with a compromise here. I'm willing to compromise my principles and go with scenario number 1. I definitely don't want to see the planner gone. I don't want to see the council on aging need stuff. And I don't think whatever plan we go with, I don't see that it's going to make any difference in terms of how we handle next year's budget, other than maybe we won't have to lay off someone. But you know, if Triton comes through with a budget next year like they did this year, we're in trouble, especially when we don't have, we lucked out. We pure luck this year that we had the $2 million in free cash. That was a gimme that I think shocked all of us when it came through. But you know, to move this thing along, I'm willing to, I don't know how the other members feel, go with scenario 1, which would be a cut in the budget of $200,000, use $114,319 for free cash for the total deficit of $314,319, and present that as an article, or make these changes for the special town meeting in June.
Just to make
any other
clear to
ideas?
everybody, when we say $2 million in free cash, we used 800,000
right,
Almost
to balance our budget.
Correct.
Okay, and then we used 200,000 in the special town meeting.
A little over 200.
A little over 200,000.
865,000, Mr.
Excuse
Snow.
me?
865,000 in the FY19 operating budget that was approved on April 30th.
I want people
Right.
at home to understand when we talk $2 million, where that money has gone.
Well, we've been accused of
Yeah.
hoarding,
Yes,
or whatever, and the money it's not being hoarded. It goes into every nickel gets used in the
Yes.
budget one way or another, and the school takes over the years, the school has taken the biggest proportion of that free cash. So, you know, like I say, I'm willing to go along with that.
So, Dave, do you want to make a motion for scenario
Right,
number
so
1?
I'd like to
way it's
hear
written?
does everybody agree with that, or is
Well,
something?
I'm not, you know, I know what you're saying about OPEB, but it seems to, and I know it's 25,000, it's not a huge amount, but the town should have some discipline that every year we're going to put some money in there. And it also strikes me that robbing stabilization to keep more free cash is not a good idea either, but.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we would still be putting in 100,000 into OPEB. We put in 125, and I'm sorry, I should have included
okay, all
that
right.
fact on my note.
Okay.
So
I
Article
thought-
23
All right.
had
well,
125, so we're just taking
All
25
right, well,
off the
that
table.
makes me feel better about that.
Yeah,
I mean, certainly
we're
we
still
can-
funding parts of it.
Yeah.
Let's face it, the money's we got to cut corners somewhere. And OPEB is one of those that we want to put money in every year. We don't want to say no, but it's one of those we're never going to catch up with anyway. So we do what we can, and this is a year that we look at less. I mean, last year we put in a little bit extra because we had some extra, but we would like to have put it in this year. But if we can't, at least we're putting something in there.
And Dave said about stabilization. Stabilization is very important. And I think when I came on, I think we had 175,000.
Yeah, we were low. We had nothing, next to nothing
You
when I
came on way back. It was.
And we were using every nickel for the first up through about 2013. We used every nickel of free cash every year to fund the budget. So
And the boards over the years have been very disciplined about putting money in the stabilization. I think we have 1,075,000 now.
1,030,000.
Or 1,030,000.
I think the
Okay,
75
and again, that is for.
that's an emergency. That's a disaster
That's an
fund.
emergency.
But we can't touch that
We
for
can't
anything
touch that.
except a disaster.
And that's our bond rating also.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And, you know, in terms of stabilization, we should be putting more of our free cash into stabilization. For example, a capital stabilization fund. Because at some point in the near future, we're going to need a new pumper truck for the fire department. And we're going to have people who are paying an additional $2.10 on their tax rates to fund the Pine Grove School and the public safety building. So what are we going to do? Go say, oh yeah, by the way, we need another override for $600,000 to buy a new fire truck? If, you know, we could have the fiscal policies that said, okay, so we're going to put X percentage of our free cash in capital stabilizations so that when it comes time to buy a new fire truck, we don't have to put an additional burden on the taxpayers. because for the next, 20 to 25 years, we're gonna be paying out those projects.
And, a ladder truck, because we bought that ladder truck, it was $700,000 ladder truck. And every pumper that we buy, and those have to be every, I forget, what is it, every year we do?
Well, we've been trying to do something every 5 years.
Every
when
5 years. and that's-
Override runs out.
That's $520,000,
Replace it, but
$25,000.
And we were fortunate this year. There wasn't a single department that requested a vehicle other than the normal turnover of the police cruiser. We do one of those every year as part of the budget. But next year, the highway department, I'm sure, is going to be looking for at least 1 or 2 trucks.
And there'll be a police cruiser.
The first year I came to town in 1991, the highway department was driving around in one old pickup and one dump truck that was barely running. And it took a lot of time to get all these things built up.
And understand.
So I think it's a great idea what Karen's saying is to start to create a capital expenditure.
Well, what
Fund or a stabilization fund for capital expenditures, because the problem we still have is we're funding all of our capital projects and every year we buy computers and things like that are absolutely essential to run the town, and capital equipment and major building repairs and stuff, and we do so much of that out of free cash.
Right, and those are the kind of things.
And if we don't know if we're going to keep getting free cash, then maybe next year there won't be much, and we can't get a highway truck or whatever vehicle we might need.
I'm surprised this year we didn't replace the cruiser, because
We did replace one cruiser.
It's in the budget.
It's in the
One
budget.
cruiser is
I mean,
replaced.
they run 24/7.
But periodically, we have to do 2 cruises to keep the
Yeah.
rotation going. But I mean, in the fire department, they got a pickup truck and they got things besides fire engines. We're funding a lot of fire suits for the fire department this year out of free cash, and things like that. So I mean, it's important that we keep free cash. But I think here, like I say, I'll move things along. I'll go with scenario.
Debbie, I just have a quick, was 50,000 the amount that we put into
So
stabilization?
that's the full amount of the
That's the full amount.
stabilization appropriations. We can do a hybrid. This is just a suggestion, and we can certainly,
I don't know what the difference is,
Adjust
whether you
it.
take it from free cash
if
or
you
I don't know
want to
if
take more from the free cash,
It's either one's available. I mean, to me, it's
one is harder to, stabilization is harder to use.
It's just which
right?
cubby hole you got it in. If we can cut 200,000 with scenario 1 and use 114 in free cash, I think that's probably the best compromise we can make at this point.
I just wanted to loop back around to your question about bond ratings. So one of the things that the bond rating agencies have said to us in our recent calls, and we're going to have another one because we're going to be borrowing $20 million in July because these projects are really picking up, is that we don't have formal fiscal policies. So the Board of Selectmen applied for a community compact grant, which we got from the state. We're now in the process of developing fiscal policies that would say, okay, our goal is to put, X amount of free cash into stabilization or capital stabilization. So, it's important that we have these policies, but it's, even more important that we're able to live within them.
Sure.
And that's, that's part of the problem, if you don't, keep your fund balances up and you're spending this money in your budget every year. You're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
Mr. Chairman, I asked a while ago, and you agreed, and it's kind of slipped by the boards. I still think that we should go. I would like to take a couple of minutes to go through the Triton budget and why we're getting to this point where we're having this assessment talk and where it came from, if that's okay.
Well, you want to discuss that? Is that what you're saying?
I want to present the scenario.
Budget? I guess I don't
in case anybody's wondering, we did an override. We voted Triton budget down. We're still talking about the Triton budget. Why?
Because we voted the override down, we got to come up with the assessment.
Okay, we could come out with an override.
The last one lost.
We don't know that Salisbury isn't coming up with an override.
Yes,
but we know that
they
two
are
towns.
coming up with an override.
Two towns. They what?
Well,
They are coming up with an override.
They are coming up with an override.
Meaning they're going to try to get an override, is what you're saying.
How much are they talking?
They hadn't come up with the figure when I talked with them this afternoon.
They were voting tonight.
Oh, really?
I don't have that.
Right now, the scenario is that 2 out of the 3 towns turned down the Triton budget, so it was rejected. So now we're discussing our new assessment from Triton. If one of the 2 towns joins Newbury in accepting this assessment, then the 3rd town is going to pay. So if Salisbury does go for an override, if they go for, like what I saw in the paper, if they go for a small amount and they pass it, then we're going to have to come up with the $314,000.
Right.
But if they went for an override and they didn't pass it, and we went for an override and they didn't pass it, it would go to the state for a 1/12 budget.
Right, and there was, we were talking about before, the state's probably going to just say, pick the Triton budget, the revised Triton budget, and say, pay this.
Well, that's a possibility.
Mr. Chairman, if we go for another override, we're just kicking this can down
Yeah, I
the
know.
road. And when the taxpayers out there see that we could have funded the budget with either budget cuts and/or free cash, there's no way they're going to vote for an override to raise their taxes on top of what they're already. So we're going to be back to, and if the override loses here, and Salisbury did almost pass it the last time, that means we're going to have to come back and cut these budgets anyway. Meanwhile, we're going to be into July with town meetings and elections, and what's an election cost us? I mean, there's all these other extraneous expenses. We have the ability to pay the assessment.
But in order to make this change, we're going to need a town meeting in June.
Yes, we do.
Right.
We definitely need that, but we don't need an election.
No.
And/or all the expenses that go with that. I just think we need to settle this and set up a town meeting tonight.
I think we do too, and I don't think an override is a realistic option.
No, I don't think
we
it'll
all
pass.
know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
It's
and that
unrealistic to
puts
expect
us in
people.
a bad situation, so, chaotic situation.
When we first started this whole budget process, we had no idea what the Triton assessment was going to be. We started talking about this way back when. We were here waiting for Triton to come in with their assessments, and we had to wait for Whittier, which we found out later, and things like that. So, and we didn't find out, it was in March when we found out how much free cash we had. Up until then, we didn't know how much free cash we had. So, I mean, everything is piled up at the last minute. We just let's just settle this, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. I'm going to.
One last question, and
Thank you. Bonnie Berkowitz, 623 Weathersfield Street. Just one very brief comment. It's a very difficult situation, and there is no easy answer. The bond rating changes one way or the other. Each and every resident, as well as business owners, are affected by that. Not only for our homeowners insurance, our automobile insurance, our mortgages, and also a commercial mortgage. So if we're working on whether it's a very small project or a larger project, a change in a bond rating, it's one of the first questions that's put forth when those of us who try to shop for insurance for our homes, for our businesses, and perhaps to do other projects. So Ms. Summon, I think, hit the nail on the head. It not only affects the town's fiduciary endeavors, but it also trickles back down once again to each and every individual homeowner, business owner. So I would just implore the board to, as you have, and very fiscally responsible, but to be very mindful of each and every dollar out of free cash that we spend, because debt is inexpensive relative to the capital, which is very expensive. Cash is expensive to spend. And we could model that. Perhaps the Finance Committee might be willing to show a couple of different scenarios. If there were a very small change in our bond rating and we were to spend that free cash. So there's no easy answer, and I understand it's triage at this point, but I would just request respectfully that the board really consider each and every dollar of free cash as what it truly is, because each resident, we pay, if we were to pay $1 in tax, we have to earn $2. And then if we were to consider the change in the bond rating, that also, once again, it goes back to our individual mortgage rates. It goes back to our homeowners insurance, our automobile insurance. So I'm supportive of whatever decision you have to make. And I'm grateful I'm not sitting at the other side of the table, but I would, in fact, just implore each and every one of you to really consider the long-term effects of a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I think we're talking about scenario one. Just to reiterate, that would entail $200,000 in cuts to FY19 appropriations and a reduction of $114,319 in free cash. So, David, did you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, so now, Mr. Chairman, could you vote to set the date for the special town meeting for January 18th, 2000? I'm sorry, January in my mind, looking at this. June 18th, 2018 at 7 p.m. at Pine Grove School. We'll have to use the gym again. And so if you set that date, and then I'll need him.
If that works for you and the town and all the...
That's the date that the selectmen had discussed as a backup, should something happen with the override at a prior meeting. And I've already been in touch with the town's attorney, and we're trying to work on, we've been in touch with the Department of Revenue and trying to work on the warrant articles. So I would need to actually probably have a special meeting next week, a quick special meeting to vote on the warrant, because I will have to get that posted on.
You have to open the warrant tonight, too?
Yes, I was gonna have you open it and close it at the meeting next week, because
Okay. Yeah, we only want the one article, right?
yeah, but if you wanna vote to set the date and
I'll give you a
for
motion to set
special
the
town
date for
meeting-
June
I'll second.
23rd at 7 p.m. Pine Grove
Well-
School.
June 23rd, is that the other
I mean, I'm sorry, June 18th.
June 18th.
Well, we'll have to open.
We're all getting punch drunk here.
All right, next week, we'll have a special meeting for
Right.
Board of Selectmen, because we have Memorial Day next Monday.
Right.
Yes, and I'm gonna need some time
Right.
to work on this, so,
Okay, any second to that motion?
I second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
and then at the meeting next week, we can have you vote to open that warrant, accept the warrant that I'll have prepared, and then to close it.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks everyone. Okay, I think we're on new business, item 4, discuss the Independence Day celebration on the town common. It's time to start planning for the annual Independence Day celebration on the town common. The Independence Day holiday falls on a Wednesday this year, Wednesday, July 4th. Typically, the board holds this event on the weekend before the holiday, which would be Saturday, June 30th. Tim Southall is available for this date. Does the board wish to schedule the event for June 30th?
I think that's the only date. Well, I was looking at this. Most people, I'm thinking most people, go away the first and second week of July. And I'm thinking if we do it the 30th, we'll be losing some of the townspeople, because they'll be going on vacation, leave on Saturday.
Yeah, well, I'd say if you moved it to June 23rd, it's so far out.
Yeah,
from the
It's so
Independence
far,
Day.
it loses its meaning.
We've usually done it the Saturday before,
Yeah.
So that's what this is.
Yeah,
just kind of the way the calendar fell this year.
it's just the way it's gonna be, I guess.
Some years it's closer, some years it's further away. But we do know that Tim is available, and he does a great job with the parade and
Let's do 30th.
and the races.
Is that a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it.
Can we put out an appeal for people that would like to help run
Yes.
activities? Or, I mean, we're all getting, I hate to say it, we're getting up there in age.
No.
And it'd be great to get some younger people involved in helping us out. I mean, Tim Southall does a fantastic job. My wife's just a little bit younger than me. She helps Tim run the games, but we need some young blood. And if there's some other activity somebody wants to help out with or something, we could do some other things, but
There
we
is
need
a
help.
lot
We
of
can't
work.
do it.
I mean, we all know, we've all been doing this for the last, I've been doing it for 10 years now. There's a lot of work involved in order to get this day up and moving. There's a lot of things to do, and I'm
I
getting out of
know.
breath just thinking about what the week week is like. About 4 days before the 4th on the Common, it's,
And we rely on some of the businesses.
yeah.
For the freezer, for the ice, for the slush that you get from Everett. So I mean, but if we have some volunteers, then they'll need to contact the office and they need to be Cory checked because we are in a situation where we're working with vulnerable age group.
So if you're out there on the couch tonight, you're thinking, gee, I would like to do something in the town, this would be a great.
Yeah, great way to help out.
To come forward and help us out. Again, Dave's right, we're not getting any younger. So.
No, we want kids to come, but we also need parents to help us.
Yeah.
And help their kids have a better time. So it's a group effort, and you know, there was a couple of years that we didn't do it because we just, you know, and Bob, actually, I think you were the one that brought it back to life again after I left. And it's a good thing, and I know on the Rowley Talks channel they're talking about they'd like to do more and all this. Well, if they want to do more, then they got to help.
Yeah.
We're doing as much as we can do, given our physical conditions.
Thanks,
so
Dave.
if there's anybody
I like
out
to say
there,
speak for yourself, but it's true. You know?
I was there Saturday.
Oh, okay. Next, all right, so we voted for this.
Yeah, we voted for it.
Next, new business item 5, discuss recycling center issues, and I guess because this was placed on the agenda late, we can only discuss the issues, we can't actually resolve them tonight.
Okay.
Today, Amy spoke to Jimmy Motzkin at JRM about 2 issues at the recycling center. One, the containers on site are old, rusted, and have holes in them. One is owned by JRM, and the other 3 are owned by the town. Last week and today, while JRM was hauling 2 containers to empty them, they were pulled over by the DOT for unsafe hauling because litter was coming out of the containers. They tried to fix the one that was removed last week, but were not able to get it back to the recycling center before the center opened on Saturday. 2, the recycling market is terrible, and their pricing with the town has been the same for the past 10 years. He said the pricing needs to be increased considerably since they cannot continue at the current rates. The approved funding for recycling, excluding wages, for FY19 is $8,510 and will likely be insufficient to cover costs if the pricing is increased. He would like to meet with the town to review their new programs and some options for the town to consider, such as separating out mixed paper or to no longer offer glass recycling, which is expensive because it is heavy. He said as a stopgap, he will try to locate 2 bins for the town to use until these issues are worked out.
Mr. Chairman, after Amy prepared this document for your meeting packet, Mr. Motzkin, who is the president of the company, did call me in the office, and we did chat. He was able to get 2 of the JRM bins to the recycling center, and I thanked him for that. We did discuss the mixed paper. Years ago, the mills would accept mixed paper, and that means cardboard and like copy paper. Now the mills focus on either one. So if it can be in the separation costs for that, so when you throw everything into one paper bin, there's a huge separation cost now. So that might be something that I wasn't aware of, and maybe the board wasn't, but that's something we'll have to look at. But I can tell you now.
So it'd be cardboard and everything else? Is that what
Yeah, cardboard is actually got some money value to it, but this copy paper is worth nothing. All the recyclables are worth 0. I hate to say it, but I have been informing you of the issues with China, and the whole U.S. market has sunk on recycling. China's not taking our plastics and glass anymore. Certainly limited, and it's affecting every city and town in the whole country that offers a recycling program. So we will be, Mamie and I will be meeting with Mr. Motzkin, going over some of the issues that we're facing, and he is very receptive to coming in subsequent to that, to a meeting with the Board of Selectmen. But I will alert you, our budget is not going to be able to cover whatever comes down the pipeline, so there will have to be some changes. We have a recycling budget, which is modest, and we've brought up issues that we've been having. Our expenses right now are $8,510, so for the whole year, for just the recycling end of it.
And that doesn't cover the wages of the person?
No, the wages are $4,000 approximately. To station, we have 2 recycling operators that work for the town that provide assistance at the center during the public hours. But it's not so much the wage piece that I'm concerned about, the expense piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was there Saturday morning, and I took very little cardboard down, and I could barely get it into the container.
There was only.
It was filled right.
I went
to the
down there
roof.
today. There's normally 2 paper bins, and there was only 1. So that's obviously, that's why we didn't have the other one, was because it was faulty.
And we would need to eventually replace those
So can I?
rusted bins, which I did get some pictures from Mr. Modskin late
Pictures,
today.
photographs.
Yeah, no,
of the bins are
they're a
horrible.
disaster.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Can I make the suggestion and make it shot down? But if we're looking at the special town meeting, and I hate to say use another 10,000 from free cash, but this is kind of an emergency, and I think we need to keep the recycling going for another year, and that'll give us right now to make a decision other than eliminate it, which will be a real problem, I'm sure. People are depending on it. I think if we could fund some more money in that budget for FY19,
And then use it.
and then we need to decide in the next, before the next year's budget, what are we going to do long-term? I mean, one of the things we've talked about is if we can get the Didax building, we could maybe move the recycling to a better center. If it's not paying, I'm not sure that maybe we should get out of the recycling business altogether. If it's costing us money, I mean, people, if you have your rubbish picked up by, Mellow, I think they pick up recyclables and stuff like that. But I mean, it's something that we need some time to look at, but I would just suggest maybe if we had an article to give some funding, and maybe if you don't want to do it, that's fine, but it gives us kind of run it the way we've been running it with the cooperation, hopefully, of Mr. Motzis, and that'll give us time next year to really come up with a decision. We've been kind of kicking this can down the road, too, as far as we know it's got problems, and Amy and Debbie and others have had issues down there with trash and everything anyway, so I just like this, we can, kick the can down the road, but in the meantime...
It's not a good site. I mean, it's
No,
not.
it's not.
When it snows or rains, it's a mess
It's a
down
mess
there,
over there.
and it should be paved.
And that's why if we can get Didax, we got a ready-made solution, but
Right.
if we don't, it may be worthwhile. It may be worthwhile anyway, just to get rid of it,
Yeah, I
but
think it may
we
be,
need
yeah.
time to do that. But in the meantime, I'd like to see a little funding added
Yeah.
to the FY19 budget
Is that a
too.
motion?
We can't,
Well-
can we make a motion to?
Well, if you want me to write an article, can you tell me how much money you want for
Well, I
this?
mean,
Because I don't know
is there a possibility, Debbie, if we make a motion to add money, an article, and if you're going to talk to Mr. Motzis, maybe he can give us some indication of what. I mean, I'm going to say 10,000, and that's just I'm
Oh,
just
that's
pulling
good.
that out of the sky.
Well, is there a cap for the
That's more
board?
than twice what we're paying them now, so, I mean, it seems to me that ought to be
Well,
reasonable.
Mamie spoke to him as
He didn't
well.
indicate, he just
Yeah.
said it would be a substantial increase.
Yeah,
Well, it's substantial, so if we do, what are we paying now?
This all happened late today, so
Oh, I
I haven't
understand,
had a
no.
lot of time.
I mean, I just,
Well, 8,510 is what we've budgeted. We spent actual 7,000, almost 8,000.
all right, so
and,
I would suggest, and I know we don't hate to
in the
take money out
prior
of free
fiscal
cash,
year.
but put another 10,000 into free cash, and meanwhile, if Mr. Motzis comes up with, if he can tell us, well, yeah, that'll be enough, we can, authorize you to write an article for up to, say, $20,000, even round it off at 20. That'd be 8,000 plus the, say, 12,000 or 11,000, or if you want to make it 19,000. And up to that amount, you can write the article. If it's going to be more than that, then we can discuss it at next week's meeting.
Right, we
and come up with
can
an
vote on it next week.
alternative.
Yeah.
Does that sound acceptable? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out. I think we need to do something with it, definitely.
What's the number?
Double it.
What's the number that would come from free
Say
free cash?
19,000, just to make it easy.
19,000 from free cash?
No,
Or
it'd be
you have
19,000, no, it'd be,
You want the
that
difference of
amount,
that?
the total would be 19, it'd
Okay.
be 10,000 or 11,000,
Okay,
whatever.
you want the expense budget set at 19,000?
Right.
Okay.
And then, up to 19,000. If they can do it for cheaper than that, fine. But it sounds like, it's not gonna be much cheaper, but.
But we're not necessarily spending this money, I mean,
No, and
once
if,
we find out how much the increase is, we can have a discussion on whether we want to, or just stop the terminate the
right, it might
program.
be something if we get working on it in the spring and the summer and fall, we might say January 1st, we're all done. If it's not, it's gonna cost too much and it's out of control, then, people have to make other arrangements. But at least it'll give us a little time to, keep the thing going. And it is, a lot of people, you go down there on a Saturday morning, it's backed up sometimes, people going in there, so there's a lot of usage of that recycling, so it's not something that's.
I've pointed that out before,
Yeah.
since the inception of, Amazon and everybody buying
Yeah.
things online, we have so
Cardboard.
much corrugated cardboard,
Right.
it takes up all the space in the bin.
Yeah.
So we have so much more of that, we can't keep up with the hauling. And the site is not
It's not secure.
suitable, it hasn't been, I've been letting the selectmen know for many years on that, and for a variety of reasons.
I mean, during the winter, you take your life in your hands down there with the snow and ice.
And we
I mean,
do
it's-
work hard to get it cleared, plowed, sanded by the recycling, they shovel, but it's solid ice sometimes.
Yeah, no, it needs to be paved, I don't think there's any doubt
So,
about it.
and so we've had, the town has grown and the budgets remain the same.
It's another one of those areas that we keep kicking the can down the road to
Bernie?
fund other budgets.
Does it make any sense to talk to the Moolis Market Basket? Because they must be the most prolific generator of...
Well, they do their own, I'm sure.
Well, exactly. So the issue would be what they could do to help the town, and just go and ask them. I mean, it doesn't strike me as being any pain to talk to Market Basket, who are experts in the moving of this stuff, as to what they can, or what they might have done with other towns who have faced a similar problem, and gives them an opportunity. I mean, the worst they can do is say no, go away. But if you don't ask, you're never going to get.
Well, I'm not sure what you expect them to do. I mean, they're not going to want people going over there and dumping cardboard in their bins.
But even if...
The only thing they could do is...
compactor.
With their parking situation, I mean, I don't think they'd want to get involved in that.
Well, but wouldn't, if they have a spare cardboard compactor, wouldn't that help us?
I don't think
They're not going to do it.
if you ever worked in a supermarket,
Way too much money.
it's,
When we look, years ago, Jack DeBento, he and I, and Debbie was working on it, we looked at trying to put a compactor, just the cost to put the power to the compactor, because it isn't just a 220 line, you need major lines going in, and that cost, I don't remember what the cost was, but it was...
We had to upgrade the phase.
It was horrendous.
That'd
be a three-phase. Yeah, that's what I mean. At this
Very
point,
expensive piece of equipment.
Yeah, well, I remember the whole.
and then you run into the problem of what if some kid gets stuck in there? You know, I mean, it's not supervised. It just
DOT unlocks it.
Yeah, it
because
became
they
a
need
real
access in and out.
the
We're on the
supermarket
land.
goes through so much cardboard.
Yeah, I mean,
It's incredible.
for them it's a business expense. For us, it's just there's too many. Right now, I'd rather just put the money in. Let's spend a year or a few months talking about it, deciding get an idea from JRM what the actual costs
Yeah, I
are.
think that makes sense.
And they were the cheapest ones when we went out to bid. The last time you went out to bid, they were by far the cheapest ones, and they've been excellent compared to the company we had before. They've been excellent on picking up and dropping off and so on and so forth. So just need to get it done.
We don't need a vote on that, correct? So, final item on the agenda is, or no, not the final. Reappointments. And I don't understand what we're supposed to be talking about, this list of,
So, Mr. Chairman, we have representatives from the board that serve on various committees, and they reviewed every year, so whatever, if there wants to be, a board member wants to not be a rep to a certain committee, you want to move on, this is the current.
oh, okay. But
So
do I start at the CPA administrator? Or?
No, you should start at Easton Essex, so currently Bob Snow is there, we need to do reappointments
Okay,
effective
In other words, if
July
you want-
1, does Bob still want to be on it, or is there another
I'll
one?
volunteer to stay on the Eastern Essex Veterans
Okay.
District.
Okay, so I guess we need a motion for that?
No, why don't we do the whole list?
Okay, all right, Personal Advisory Committee,
Yeah, that's me. I'm willing to serve if nobody else wants it.
Rowley Emergency Management Agency,
That's typically the chairman and vice chairman. I'd be willing to continue on there.
and, Chairman and Vice Chairman?
Yeah.
Both.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, would you like to be the
sure.
rep then? Okay.
All right, so it'll be Cliff will be the chair,
Yeah.
and who's,
No, well,
And Joe
as
Barry.
chairman, he would be appointed to the board.
If
The chair is.
well, that's what I
the,
mean. It
fire
says,
chief.
well, it says
Typically,
chairman.
it's the chair and vice chair, but it's not necessarily.
Oh, I
have to
see.
be that
All right,
way.
I'm looking at it wrong. Okay.
Right,
And you're going to do Bob Snow's going to stay on, or?
yeah.
No, Bob Snow will no longer be
No.
on.
No, you're going to be, it'll be,
We're scratching Bob Snow and putting
It'll be you,
Cliff Pierce and
Joe.
scratching vice
okay.
from that one.
Cannoneer,
Bang.
You're gonna stay.
Oh, yeah.
Good,
There's
thank you.
nobody else in town that can do it.
Grateful town, thank you. Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority Advisory Council.
That's me.
You'll stay?
I'll stay.
Merrimack Valley Planning Commission
I'll stay
representative,
on
you'll
that.
stay? Do we have an alternate member to
Yeah,
that?
the alternate is Joe. Joe, you want to
That's
stay?
me. I'd like to stay.
Okay.
Okay, Northern Essex Regional Planning Commission.
It's really the same almost as REMA, if you wanna just
So it
keep
should
it
be Cliff?
consistent with you.
Yeah.
For what?
It'll be you and
For what?
chair and vice chair would be appointed to that.
Northern Essex Regional Planning Commission?
Yeah.
Okay. And Zoning Review Committee. Bob, you're the selectman's member currently.
Yeah.
You want to stay in that capacity?
Sure.
I used to be the member from the planning board to the zoning, the representative to the zoning review committee. I'd like to stay involved in that. I was wondering if it was possible for the board to have two representatives.
This is a
ZRC.
committee, and it's not a full standing, it's an advisory committee
Right.
created by the Board of Selectmen, so certainly if you wanna
And the-
modify the
The
makeup on that.
planning board has two representatives, the zoning board of appeals has two reps, so.
That's right.
I don't see any reason why,
Yeah, I
the board
think
of
So why don't we do
That-
two then, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
would-
So that we would need a motion then
I'll make a motion to have
the
the
makeup of the
zoning review
ZRC.
committee be two representatives
From the Board of
from
Selectmen.
the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it. Make a motion to appoint Bob, Mary, and myself to the zoning
We'll do
review
it, the
committee.
whole thing,
Okay.
at the end.
Uh,
Or that is the end.
Well, but they're just, well.
I'll make a motion to appoint the people as we designated,
Okay.
to those commissions as
That's a
designated.
good way to do it.
Second.
All's in favor?
That's easy. Aye.
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. The next one is CPA Administrator, one-year appointment, currently served by Karen O'Donnell.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it. Unlimited Lighting Bylaw Enforcement Agent, one-year term, Kirk Baker.
Make that motion.
Second.
Parks and Recreation, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? The ayes have it. I'll do these two together. Parks and Recreation Committee, three-year term, Lawrence Kendall and Tim Southall.
Make that motion.
Second.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
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 All's opposed? The ayes have it. Agricultural Commission, three-year term, Elizabeth Tucker.
Motion.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it. Board of Health, three-year term, Susan Elwell.
Make that motion.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All's opposed? The ayes have it. Plumbing and Gas Inspector, three-year term,
Yeah.
and alternate Plumbing and Gas Inspector, one-year term, Harry Bennett and William Went.
Give it that motion.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's
Aye.
opposed? The ayes have it.
Aye.
Building Inspector, three-year term, Ken Ward, and alternate Building Inspector, one-year term, Sam Jocelyn.
Give it that motion.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it. Wiring Inspector, three-year term, David Levesque.
Motion.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
The ayes all's opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, last on the agenda, budget issues. Okay, we request from the town administrator to transfer funds from unemployment to town hall expenses.
Give the motion, Mr. Chairman. $2,500.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it. So that's,
We can have you sign that paper
okay.
later.
Then there's a request from the town administrator to transfer funds from unemployment to town hall annex expenses.
Motion.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it. Finally, request from town administrator to transfer funds from administrative assistant line to assistant town administrator.
Give it that motion.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, finally, announcements. The Rowley Highway Department is conducting road work on Christopher Road and Intervale Circle starting May 21 and running through the end of June. Memorial Day Parade and ceremonies will be held on May 28th, 2018. The parade starts at 1:30 p.m. from the Rowley Veterans Association. Information on the Pine Grove School project is available on the town's website at www.townofrowley.net. Town has the following vacancies: Planning Board Associate, well, that's not a vacancy anymore.
Nope.
Agricultural Commission Associate, Fence Viewer, 3 positions. Wood, Lumber, and Bark Inspector. Zoning Board of Appeals Associate, 3 seats. Parks and Recreation, 1 seat. And Deputy Shellfish Constables, 2 positions. For more information on these positions, contact the Selectman's Office at 948-3272. The Rowley Food Pantry is in need of donations. Donations can be left at the Rowley Public Library. The food pantry is open on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and on Thursdays from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Give me a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Any seconds?
Can I, just real quick,
Sure.
new business number 2, did you skip that, or did I arrive after that had already happened?
You arrived later.
You arrived after that.
Okay.
So,
Just checking.
Joe's been appointed as the Selectman representative.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A motion to adjourn.
Any seconds?
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? The ayes have it.
I don't know, Joe, the new chairman's taking a long time to run the meeting.